Yeah, seriously, right?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My mic seems to be dead.
Mine is too. All that. Oh, there's a plug here that's unplugged. Do you think that is anything? That did it. Tech support.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will call the Peace River Town Council regular meeting of Monday, July 14th to order at 5 p.m. So welcome, everyone. We've got the agenda in front of us. So are there any changes to the agenda?
I do have a deletion, your worship, under closed section 13, item number 5.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, would someone like to move with that amendment? Councillor Ford?
Yes, I'll move the council agenda as amended.
Thank you. All those in favor?
In favor.
Okay, it is carried. Now we have the minutes of the June 23rd regular council meeting in front of us. Did anybody notice any edits to those minutes? If not, someone like to move?
I'll move the council adopt the minutes of the June 23rd, 2025 regular council meeting as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor of that motion? Great, it is carried. Do not have any public hearings, nor do we have any delegation presentations. So we have bylaw reading for bylaw number 2176, assessment of manufactured home communities with Mr. Mumford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have before you this evening bylaw 2176, assessment of manufactured communities. So on May 12, 2025, administration presented alternatives regarding collection of property taxes for manufactured home communities. Council requested administration prepare a bylaw regarding the designation of manufactured homes within manufactured home communities, trailer parks for consideration. This bylaw was brought forth for first reading, and again, very brief background on this. Administrations historically struggled with the process of collecting property taxes from residents from mobile communities within the municipality. Currently, town taxes the land by way of a levy sent to the trailer park, and then a separate levy is sent to the individual residents of the park for taxation of mobile homes and improvements. It's the latter levy that the town is having trouble collecting property taxes on. This difficulty arises because mobile homes are more equitable than traditional houses, as they are not titled or registered with the land titles office. So to address this issue, the attached proposed bylaw would make park owners responsible for paying all of the residents' bills. Those bills would then be passed on to the manufactured home through rent or other means as determined by the park owners. The Municipal Government Act allows for this, and the relevant section is 3041J2 and 331 paragraph 1. Administration is proposing that this bylaw would come into effect January 1, 2027, which would give all parties an opportunity to revise their rental agreements and reflect on how to best implement the paperwork. Council granted first reading on June 9th, 2025, after which administration reached out to the park operators, requesting any questions, concerns, and providing opportunity for a meeting to discuss. There were some questions that were received and replied to, although there were no meetings requested. Subsequent to that, we did receive letters from both operators, and one was dated July 7th, and one was dated the 14th, which I believe has been circulated to council. So the options before council this evening are to, option would be to grant second and third reading of bylaw 2176. Advantages of that would be that it would improve the collectability of tax receivables, as mobile parks already collect rent and have the most current owner information. It establishes a clear and consistent process for tax collection from manufactured homeowners. Reduces the administrative burden for collection of mobile home property taxes. And it reduces potential financial harm incurred by mobile homeowners due to property tax arrears and interest that would otherwise be recovered through sale of seized personal property. The disadvantage is it shifts the responsibility for tax collection to the mobile park operators, which increases their workload. And the financial implications for the town is improved collectability of property taxes, which mitigates their bad debt expense. Option 2 would be to decline to grant second and third reading to bylaw 2176. The advantage of that is less work for the mobile community operators. The disadvantage is it continues the current administrative burden for town staff and would maintain the current risk of collection. Financial implications are potentially higher bad debt expense recognized by the municipality and continue to be a burden on administration in terms of the costs associated with attempting recovery. And option 3 would be to grant second and third reading as amended. So recommendation from administration of the council grant second and third reading to bylaw 2176, the assessment of manufactured home communities. Thank you. I'll take questions.
Thank you. Councillor Shannon?
Okay, I'm a little confused. I thought that this was gonna come forward with an option to work with them, finding the way to do this better, but, doing it monthly. I thought that was the option coming forward today.
So at our meeting on May 12th, when we discussed the different options available for council, one of the options was to pass this bylaw, which would basically make it so that the park operators or the landowners are the assessed party. A second option that council was presented at the time was to look at enacting a bylaw that would require that all manufactured homes are entered into our monthly payment plan, which we have in place currently as an optional thing. So at the time, the recommendation from council was to proceed with the prior option.
Must have been just me then that wanted to go that way, because anybody else recollect that was just expected something different.
So I guess to summarize, the rationale for not proceeding with that is you can require that they enter into the payment plan, but if they still choose not to honor the terms of that payment plan, you would end up in the same spot for those property owners.
Is there any, but is this give it to them or we keep it? Is that the question here, or is there room to work together with them to come up with a solution that satisfies both? I know I see here that other, you listed other towns that have done it, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're not those towns. We could do it a different way, or is that off the, well, I guess it's not off the table, but is that a consideration?
I don't know how you'd have to measure this. Like the proposed solution is, like has been reviewed by our lawyer, and it's a legal option that the town has to reduce the disproportionate amount of time that is spent by administration pursuing these accounts.
Councillor Carr?
I just asked at one point if we could pass a bylaw to not allow for monthly payments of the taxes, but to make it a bylaw that they have to make their monthly payments. And last meeting you'd indicated, yes, we could do that. Now, why are we leaving it as an option whether they can, rather than saying you have to? Because if they are in arrears after 2-3 months, I would imagine you could begin collecting at that point, could you not?
So the rationale for not making it a requirement is that actually restricts the park operators in terms of how they would choose to go about collecting those funds. So they could choose through their agreements that they enter into with their tenants to make that collection part of their monthly process. I would anticipate that that would be the standard practice that most park operators would enter into, because that's how they currently would collect their walk fees, right? I'm anticipating that most tenants in manufacturing communities are paying monthly, they're not paying a year in advance. So, again, that would be, if I was an operator, that would be how I would structure those agreements to ensure that it best aligns with how they're currently collecting their monthly rent. So I don't see any advantage to the municipality making that a requirement. From our perspective, if this bylaw is passed, then collectability is effectively ensured, because we have, there's an asset that we can pursue if in the event that the park operator decided not to pay their tax bill, just like any other property in town. We'd be able to pursue it through tax.
Another question is, I had asked in a prior meeting, why have we not been following the rules or of the MGA on this tax collection? Because it was indicated we haven't followed for 8 years, and the response I got, well, I can't speak to the last 8 years, but can you speak to the last 2 years why we haven't been following the rules of the MGA?
So we did have some turnover within our tax clerk position. Previously, it was a split function between payroll and taxation. And as we've consolidated all of the tax related duties into one position now, because previously it was spread out over several individuals in the organization, we're getting to a point that we're more confident in our authority to pursue.
Other question, and Councillor Ford?
One of the items that was brought up in a previous meeting was, a lot of these areas, whatever trailer park it is, could it maybe considered like a low income type area. So in one of the letters that I read from one of the management companies, in order for them to take this on, could be a potential rent increase of 5 to 10% per household. Do we have any idea what kind of number that would be as far as a rent increase goes? Because with the low income situation, this could potentially put people on the street.
So with respect to that, I think the assumption is that the rents include the mortgage payment, which they would have paid somehow.
No. Yeah, I totally understand, but to include that, that's a potential 10% increase to what a low income household could be paying right now. And I don't know what the rent is, so I'm just kind of looking for a number.
My feeling is that is irrelevant. If the property, how would I put it? Mobile home parks are not a social service. The same as renting a house is not a social service. It's renting a house, it's paying a bill to have accommodation, pure and simple. A hotel room is not a social service. So if the amount is owed, if the amount is part of the financial transaction, I don't think it's up to the town to subsidize a form of housing and say, well, we think that mobile homes are a form of social service that we should subsidize. The same as we wouldn't do it to a hotel, the same as we wouldn't do it to an apartment block, we wouldn't do it to any number of areas. So I think I think it's irrelevant to that extent. I think the relevant question is, does it put too much of an onerous burden on a business? I think that's a relevant question that could be answered. But the amount that is owed for the lodging, I think is just one single number, whatever that is. If taxes are part of that, that's no different to my mind when I was renting for my business. And the landlord, I rented my shop from the business, they had to pay tax on their building. That amount was added to my rent to make sure that they had enough money to pay tax on the building, which was their business. And the mobile home park is a business. The apartment building is a business. A building that has businesses in it is also a separate business. You have to end up paying the taxes. So I don't see the difference. I think that having the businesses pay the taxes is the same as when I had the store, when there was a certain amount of money that was collected for computers and electronic waste and stuff like that. That was collected from the business and that was collected from the stores. So some stores didn't, but a large number of them did end up paying the recycling fees at that point. So I think that those are all sort of examples of where there's a debt incurred. I think it's reasonable to do so. The other part is, I don't think it's reasonable to pass that debt onto the public at large, because they're the ones who are going to end up paying for whatever losses. And the fact that somebody doesn't pay it doesn't, to my mind, mean that that tax or that amount of money should be owed by the general public. So, and those are just my feelings on the question. I think, yeah, that's the way I feel about it. I think it's reasonable under the circumstances.
Mr. Rutherford?
So the 5 to 10% number that was included in one of the letters that we received today from one of the park operators, I have no idea where that figure came from. In the research that I've done, the administrative burden for the park operator, again, the guy that I spoke with said he'd estimated about $500 a year worth of their time to facilitate this per park that they run, and they have several parks. So I'm not an expert when it comes to the Mobile Home Site Tenancy Act, but I suspect that if there was unreasonable fees or charges included, that the tenants would have some recourse through that process. But again, that's a separate issue from the town. And again, it's the way that I would envision if I was a park operator doing this, is I would calculate at July 1st what the next 12 months tax bill is per parcel, and divide it by 12. And then once you get your next year's bill, you true up any difference. So if you've been, in general, our tax bills tend to go up over time. So any shortfall that you've failed to collect, you would recalculate that and collect that difference over the next 12 months. So again, I don't envision it being overly onerous. They're already in the mechanism of collecting money every month from their tenants. This would be in just an additional line item on that bill.
So in the end, would the actual trailer or mobile home owner of the actual mobile home, would they end up paying extra?
I don't see why they would.
Because
Again,
they're paying for their taxes now, so most of them are paying for their taxes now, and they're paying the rent. So this is trying to combine that into one fee from the park owner.
correct. So just for a bit of additional context, as of today, 2024, as of 2 weeks ago, 2025's taxes were due and payable, and between the 3 parks that are in town, there are 50 properties, 50 tenants that owe taxes that are in an arrears position, totaling approximately, as of today, $37,000. So it's a lot of very small dollar amounts that are owing, and that's why for other taxpayers in the town, it's a disproportionate amount of our tax clerks' time is spent pursuing these very small dollar amounts. And again, as I've I think pretty clearly laid out, there's a benefit for all of the residents by shifting the burden of this over to the for-profit park operators that already have a mechanism in place. If their tenants are going, a month, 2 months without paying rent, they're gonna be on top of them, right? They're gonna start to use what protection they have under the legislation to pursue the monies that they're owed. So again, it's, this is in administration's opinion, in the best interest of all taxpayers to pass this bylaw.
Counselor Boychuk or Counselor Scamahorn, any comments?
A couple, the assessment process, is there any impact on that to us doing this?
Currently, the tenants or the owners of the individual mobile homes have the ability to appeal, and that wouldn't change. Okay, they would still be able to, if they felt like their assessment was too high or too low, they can submit.
I mean, my other opinion on this is that I like the month plan. I use the month plan personally. I would find it quite a hassle. Just as like I have a hard time remembering to register my vehicle every June because my last name starts with SD. And I was. And so in 2 years, I'll probably forget again. I would find it rather convenient to have it all going on the same bill in the same place, and the ability to automate that would be, I think, a favor to all involved, tenant included.
Just to clarify, Madam Mayor. So in terms of additional cost for individuals that are currently paying their taxes, there would be no additional cost unless the park operators are able to apply.
Again, in my review of the legislation, I didn't see there was an opportunity to do so. But I did not get a legal opinion on that. I didn't want us to incur further cost on this. It's, again, that would be between the landowner and the tenant.
Thank you. Counselor Boychuk, any comments at this point?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I've got a few. We've received quite a few of correspondence from a lot of the businesses impacted in this, and they've made a lot of good points. I'm wondering if maybe that we could just have a quick meeting with them, get some ideas, and maybe resolve this without a bylaw. Because I'm sure they've been in business a long time. They can maybe give us some ideas on how to collect this money and work together with them instead of, the general consensus, what I'm getting from these businesses is that it is going to be a financial burden that will be passed on to our residents. And, I think there might be a better way to collect that tax without burdening them, or, at least listen to some of these ideas and get some answers to some of the questions and just see if they're valid or not. But I really haven't had time to research a lot of them as far as what increases would cost. But I know when we raise taxes, people become unhoused, and I'm pretty sure a large increase in here might be moving backwards in what we're trying to do in our community. So I just would like to do the best thing. I'm not really super comfortable with voting in favor of it right now without a little bit more time to look into this and get some more input from those impacted. Just due to the large amount of correspondence we've been getting, I think it deserves a little bit of time.
Counselor Sure.
I echo what you're saying, Mark. That's what I said in the beginning, was if we could find a way where we can do it without doing this. They did indicate wanting to work together and sitting down and seeing if there is some kind of a plan that you could do that would take the pressure off of our administration, and as well as, keeping their part of it on schedule. But I'm not 100% comfortable voting for it right now either. But I'd like to exhaust every other way before we go that direction, I guess. Thanks.
Mr. Redford?
So I don't have records as to the hours that we've spent going back and forth with park operators regarding issues that we encountered, but we do have email correspondence. I can tell you the volume is significant. So, although it's been vocalized that there's an interest to find another alternative, I haven't actually heard a proposed solution that would resolve this issue.
Hmm.
And that's where, you know, to Councillor Boychuk's comments, there's an allegation from the park operator that this is going to be a significant burden and that they feel they'll be able to pass that cost on. My position through the research that I've taken is that A, it is not a significant work burden for them to take this on. And B, I don't know that they legally can pass this cost on. If there is a cost to it, they may just need to eat that cost. So again, this is between the tenant and the operator. It's not really the municipality's role to intervene in some way and say whether or not it's just.
Thank you. Councillor Good?
Well, one thing I learned after having my own business for 20 years is that every cost is passed on. If I have to make X margin to survive on my investment, that's what I have to do. I'll make that margin. It may not be tied to this one increase, but overall, when I look at my books, I'm gonna take a look and say, what are my expenses over a period of time, labor, materials, the whole 9 yards. You basically do the cost accounting. I'm gonna come up with a number, I'm gonna come up with my margin, I'm gonna come up with how much money I need, and that's gonna get charged to my customers. Always has been, always will be. There's no business in this world I know that doesn't operate on that principle. They all do. Mine did, and I've never heard of a business that doesn't have it that simple. It's not really out there to do it. Can they recover it? Of course. Would it be recovered in that one area? Probably not, but it will be recovered. The other thing is, I don't think that changes any of the discussion. To some extent, this was brought to council about a year ago. It was brought back again this year, because I think you have reasonable concerns on it. And I've seen a couple of letters come in, I've seen some correspondence, but I haven't seen an abundance of correspondence. And the positions are basically understandable. They don't want to do it. I understand that. I didn't like the GST for a reason. It passed on the bookkeeping cost for the taxes to me as a business person. I wasn't nuts about the recycling tax because it passed on some of the costs for that administration to me as a business person. But I do understand it. And I think that there are times when whether there are not the options. There's no happy answer here for the businesses, and I was one again, I'll speak to this. There's no happy answer to me unless we keep doing it. There's no happy answer to the business person unless we keep doing it and we keep shouldering all the expenses, all the costs, and all the time. There's really not a happy answer for us or our taxpayers if we don't pass the costs on to those businesses. Because your people and the taxpayers are going to end up paying that amount of money. Again, as a business, we have to recoup. If we're short $40,000 in taxes, and let's say we had a zero balanced budget, we have to come up with $40,000. Again, this is not rocket science math. This is real easy. So I'm in support of doing it. Not that I think it's a wonderful thing to do, but I don't see a reasonable alternative. And I really don't. And the businesses have had opportunities to come to speak to council about it. They sent letters, which is totally fine. They've had opportunities to come and speak. We had, once it was given the motion, they had an opportunity to come. I mean, those things happen. So, yeah, I mean, we can delay this forever.
So where this ends up is in an instance where you've got a trailer that, I'll use an example, one that needs to be demolished. A current land use bylaw allows for the town to impose a special condition that requires that any unpaid taxes be done so prior to a unit being demolished. And those need to be paid by the applicant. So you can have a circumstance where there are units that need to be demolished, need to be removed, which the taxes are owing on them, and that burden would fall to the applicant, which in this case would be the park operator. So the alternative is if the town doesn't impose that condition and the unit's demolished, we have no recourse. I'll be bringing to council a bylaw to write off, or I'll be requesting a motion to write off those balances, which pushes the cost on everyone else. So effectively what we're talking about here is, you know, ultimately choices will need to be made by future councils as to whether or not we choose to pursue collection, or if it's, you know, there might not be any asset to go after, but the MGA requires that we pursue to the best of our ability with the tools that we have available. And if we don't successfully complete that, then that cost will be shared by everyone else. So do you want the cost, like in general, you try to align the benefits with the risks in business. And in this case, this is a cost, or the proposal would be to make this a cost of them doing business. They're businesses, they're incentivized to be as efficient as possible. And again, in my research, I've seen example that this can be done very, very effectively.
Councillor Shannon?
Well, by that logic, we shouldn't be giving out grants to groups or anything then, because we're basically subsidizing businesses, maybe helping them with their, giving away grants, helping them with their, whatever they need to avoid crime or whatever, and other things like signage and that. So we are subsidizing businesses to a certain extent.
It's, I mean, that's a separate issue, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there are taxpayers that take that position, that they view those as council, basically handing out money to different groups, different businesses. Again, it's a separate matter from this one, but sure.
Councillor Scanlon?
I'm just not sure how this is shockingly different from anybody renting out any house or anything else. All of those properties have a tax bill, and that's calculated in what the proposed rent is, and that's what the renter pays. And I don't know why this instance is so darn special from any other apartment or house in town that's being rented. For some reason, this seems to have created a gigantic complication, and I guess it doesn't make any sense to me why don't renters go in and pay their tax on the houses that they rent? How is this, but how does this get so far, off what seems to be really simple?
So I think in part, we've been giving information that mobile homes are treated differently under land titles than houses. So that is.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, like, this is not an unreasonable situation. This is not a very foreign situation. It's not an uncommon situation that if someone is renting a property, the tax bill is included in the rent.
Yeah.
That's not new. That's not crazy.
Councillor Carr?
I don't think it's the tax bill that is in question here, it's the added administrative costs that will cause possibly undue burden on people that are, let's say, are marginal people that maybe are on the verge of homelessness. I think that is the issue, not whether the taxes are being paid or not. Everybody knows the taxes have to be paid.
Well, to take a number, divide by 12 and add it onto the rent, I don't think is a really hard administrative burden. And if somebody has to charge enough to put someone out of their home to accomplish that task, doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, Councillor Boychuk?
So I'm a little unclear on, say we have a mobile home park, and say all 50 of these mobile homes refuse to pay their taxes in this one park. Does that mean the rest of the residents are going to carry that tax burden for them? And who's going to eat that tax if we're going to send a bill to the mobile? I'm a little confused on how we're going to recoup, because just how is this going to guarantee that people are going to pay their taxes? And we're always going to have people that don't. So who's going to absorb that cost? Whereas in the past, it seemed like it was the municipality, but now is it going to be the trailer park people? I'm just a little unclear on how that recovered loss is going to come in and who's going to cover it.
Mr. Mumford?
I can speak to that, Councillor Boychuk. So, you know, as I said earlier, I've got a list of currently 50 within the three parks, 50 roles that are in arrears. So hypothetically, none of them paid. We would be looking to send bailiffs in. We'd be adding on the cost of that enforcement. So the multiple hundreds of dollars that we'd have to pay those bailiffs to go in and seize property and then sell that property to recover our funds. So they can seize vehicles, they can seize jewelry, they can seize whatever has value. Now there's a process that we need to go through to be able to legally do that, but the MGA requires that we do. And that's why it's a very heavy-handed approach. And as I explained previously, you're quite often not getting full value recovery. If you seize a TV that somebody paid $1,000 for, you might only be able to sell for $200, right? So it's adding additional hardship. So what this does is it puts all of that, the responsibility collection on the for-profit park operator. And then they pay their entire bill to the town and they collect through whatever mechanism they wish the taxes that are owed. As discussed, I would envision they would do that as part of their monthly lot rental fee. But they could choose to, through the agreements that they enter with their tenants, go a different way. We're not prescribing that they have to do it a certain way. That option is still theirs. So the only administrative burden that's being discussed, as Councillor Scanlon laid out, is the cost of taking the roll number, the tax bill per property and dividing it by 12 and assigning that to each individual bill and then truing it up once a year. Once they receive their current year taxation, any difference between what they were collecting and what they needed to collect, they recalculate that and collect it over the next 12 months. So again, there's an assertion being made by the park operators who do not want to do this because it is admittedly more work for them. There's an assertion that this is going to be a significant cost. They're alleging 5 to 10%. That's not substantiated in any way. There's no, I haven't seen the rationale for why they would need to charge 5 to 10% more on their rents to support the cost of doing this. The research that I've done says that it's a fairly simple administrative process to achieve. And they're incentivized to be as efficient as possible. Because again, from what I've read, I have not gotten a legal opinion on this, but from what I've read is that they can't pass on fees that are unreasonable and that their tenants would have the ability to appeal fees that are unreasonable or unjust. So that is all beyond the scope of what we're here to deal with today. But I don't feel that, just the assertion that this is going to be so much work and so expensive and that those costs will need to be borne by the tenants, that argument hasn't been tested. It's just an assertion that's being made by parties who do not want to take this on. They would rather the cost continue to be borne by the town and shared by all taxpayers.
Thanks, Councillor Good.
And there's the other conversation we've had a bit tonight is, well, can't we go to the people who live in the mobile home parks and say to them, well, you got to pay your tax monthly? No, I don't see that as workable either, because if I was there, I would make the argument, well, you're not doing that to apartment owners, you're not doing that to any other form of rental in town, of making them to come up with a certain amount of money every month. And I don't know that if we're going to do it to them, why we wouldn't be going to our homeowners? Because we do, in fact, sometimes have homeowners who don't pay the taxes. That occurs. But I think we have a real hard time of going to all of our homeowners in town and saying, because of this situation and the idea that we're going to treat everybody fairly, we're now going to want you to write a check every month to the town for your property taxes. You could volunteer to do that. And I'm sure somebody could volunteer at the mobile home park to do that. I don't see anything getting in their way for stopping them. Some people do, because as Byron said, some people like their stuff paid monthly because it's easier and less expensive and easier to handle. But I don't see going to monthly payments for people in mobile home parks as a workable scenario. And if it's workable and if it was workable for us, then I think it's more workable for the person that's there.
Maybe Councillor Good, like Councillor Scanmore, I also pay my property taxes monthly. The town doesn't charge for doing that calculation. It's just, I got a letter the other day that said, you know, you're previously paying this per month, now you're paying this per month. That's it. It's a calculation that gets done. And for anyone that signed up for that payment plan, it's not an overly onerous tax to calculate it.
Hey, CAO Miller, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things. I am concerned about the comment about a large amount of correspondence, because administration has not seen a large amount of correspondence. We have received a letter from 2 different park owners, so if we are missing information, I would like for that information to come forward to administration as well. I did want to say I would be deeply, deeply concerned about imposing, first of all, I'm not even sure if legally we can do so, imposing trailer parks to pay monthly taxes through to the town by way of bylaw, because typically those who are challenged financially will first pay shelter. And if we're talking, sometimes the trailer taxes are $300 maybe, so it might be another, you know, $30 a month on their lot rental. And typically, those who are struggling will try to pay shelter first, so they have a home. That $30 difference, they may pay there and go without, but if they have to pay it separately by way of automatic withdrawal, there's a high probability of NSF payments. So they're supposed to pay a $30 a month property tax bill to the town by EFT. They're struggling, it becomes an NSF. They get a $40 NSF charge from us. They get a $40 or $50 NSF charge from their bank. So I would strongly, even if we were legally allowed to, I would strongly oppose suggesting trailer parks, mobile home residents pay to the town as a separate payment. It would be far easier for them to make that one payment for their lot rental, which would include their property tax component.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hey,
I'll
Councillor
just put it this way, the more I think about it, it really boils down to 2 things, 2 questions, or actually 1 question. Who do you want to be ultimately responsible for the property tax on property when the taxes aren't paid? That's really it. That's the only question. Who you want to be responsible? The general public and the general taxpayer, or the business that is in the business of renting it out, and the taxpayers that they are renting to? That's really the only question. So, I mean, I'd be prepared to make the motion just to have that question answered. And again, I'm not married to an answer. Council can make whatever decision they wish. But I don't think the question is any more complicated than that.
And I'll just add a comment that, you know, to echo what Stephen Miller said, the only correspondence we've seen have been from the park operators who are operating for-profit businesses. Through discussion with residents and, you know, just people in my personal life when I'm describing the work that I do and explaining this issue, I think the vast majority of people would look at this and say it's an obvious thing the municipality should do. It's a thing that is for the betterment of all residents, because shifting that cost, as small as it might be, to the for-profit park operators. So, you know, you're not going to receive letters from people saying this is a great bylaw, push it forward, because it's such a small element. You know, I can't quantify how much the cost of not doing this is for every taxpayer in town, but it is a cost. And when council has tasked administration with trying to find operational efficiencies and way to be as lean as possible, I'm telling you that this consumes a disproportionate amount of the tax clerk and my time for such a small amount of money, but it's unfair on all of the other taxpayers for us not to pursue it. And so that's where our backs are up against the wall, because we have an obligation to do so. But it's like relative to what we collect every year, the $30 odd million that we collect, it's It's a very, very small amount, but we still have to go after it to be fair to everyone else.
Okay, so I heard that depending on which side of the coin you're on, that this will be a costly procedure for park owners, or others have heard that it won't be. I'm hearing that perhaps the mobile tenants themselves paying the fee over 12 months as part of their rent is in some opinions, easier to do than having two separate bills come in, one for rent and sooner or later one for taxes. What other elements are we looking at here? Those are basically it. From the town, we're sitting here on behalf of the town in total. So we have told admin to look at their expenses and look at the way processes happen. For the most part, I think we've been happy that they've been able to make adjustments so that our taxes have not gone up further. However, depending on which way this goes, yes, certain expenses in the collection of it, be it collection of rent with tax included, or maybe even just rent without tax included, there's an expense there at some point in time as well. So I guess what I would like is someone to put forth a motion so that we can do this. Councillor Ford.
Recorded vote, please.
Okay. Somebody could put forth the motion, no? Councillor Ford, good, what's your motion?
I'll move the council give second reading to bylaw number 2176, assessment of manufactured home communities.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor? Okay, I've got Good, Mounser and Scamahorn in favor, opposed. I've
I'm
got,
opposed.
I think, Boychuk, Ford, Carr, and, Shannon. So it is defeated. So the consequence is that, as admin has suggested, that,
It'll be more about it. That's fine. The decision is made. That's
Yes.
fine with it.
so that is the decision. So thank you, admin, for the time you've spent on it and more time that you will spend on it. Okay, next up, we have the, land use bylaw with, Ms. Modi and Mr. Fisher.
Good evening, council. I'm mostly up here. I just wanted to take a minute or two before Ms. Modi presents this for first reading. Just to go over some of the fluffier stuff with the land use bylaw, right? Because I think this is a process that's been going on since the last council term before this one. This one, the project kind of started. And it's kind of a huge achievement and long-term project to get this far, and it'd be really good to wrap it up before this council's term and have it given third reading. A good land use bylaw is really valuable to both administration, but also to developers. It sets clear guidelines that allow businesses to make decisions on where to invest, to give them certainty. It gives administration clarity on how to give advice when we get approached with questions for developers or from developers. I view the land use bylaw as like one of the #1 drivers for business development and growth in the community, right? Like it's the meat and potatoes of us meeting some of your strategic goals for the community, encouraging development, encouraging business growth. Administration has done this, it's taken a long time, but we've done it in a very cost-effective manner. For the project itself, we've done this with about $50,000 worth of consulting fee for support. Most of that was administrative to help us push the work through to the finish line here. in my past community, to support a land use bylaw rewrite, we approved $150,000 for consulting services, plus a temporary position to help drive that to the finish line. And so that $50,000 number seems like a huge number just on its own, but in context, it's actually very, very small. And if you look around at a lot of communities that are doing land use bylaws, you'll see that 150 number, $250,000 number tossed out pretty frequently. I think Leduc's got one right now that they've approved almost like $600,000 for the land use, Leduc County, $600,000 for the land use bylaw. So we've done it in a very cost-effective manner. When I first started here in 2023, one of the things that I heard was we don't want to be a city of Edmonton. We don't want those big, complicated processes. So what administration has done is brought a land use bylaw for Peace River that's been made in Peace River for Peace River. It's not a template that's been adopted by a consultant and just changed the names and titles. Every section of this, our team has gone through with ourselves, with the community, with different people in the organization, to make sure that it's kind of fine-tuned for where we want to be. It also addresses some of the concerns that we've heard from developers. I heard very frequently, hey, some of these approvals do take a long time, and if you are needing a variance or something different in the bylaw, or if it's discretionary, right now our land use bylaw requires those automatically to go to MPC. That can take an additional amount of time because our MPC meets infrequently, right? So you've got to schedule a meeting, make sure you've got quorum, and then wait for that meeting to happen before you can render a decision. So there's a section in here where we've given administration the ability to, with some guidance and limitations, take some of those decisions away from the MPC and do them internally as well. So we've looked at ways of reducing red tape, increasing the speed at which we can review and approve these, make a decision on applications that we receive. The other thing that I think the bylaw has, it's got some really innovative things in there. There's sections on areas where we wouldn't require a development permit that are expanded from what we had before. As a means of looking to reduce red tape, not requiring a permit just to require a permit, but we've given some serious thought of, do we actually require this permit when we're asking for it? If we are asking for this permit, why are we asking for it? And so I think that this is not the first time you guys are seeing the bylaw. Obviously, it's gone out for consultation a couple times this year. It's a really good bylaw. It's beautiful. Ms. Modi is going to talk to some of the particulars, but I just wanted to give you some of the fluffy stuff, right? Very cost effective, monumental, drives investment, really innovative, and we've listened to our community. So with that, I'll pass it off to Ms. Modi.
So before you do have bylaw 2178, finally have a bylaw number assigned to this document. It's presented to council for first reading. As Director Fisher said, this has been an ongoing project. We've been working on it for quite some time. This is proposed to rescind and replace all the bylaws associated with land use bylaw number 1891. And it is meant to provide us with a better bylaw that smooths out some of the wrinkles and the inconsistencies in our current bylaw that gave us pause, that wasn't working for us, and to introduce new ways of doing some things, and also improving the processes so that when it's simple, when it's permitted use, the processes can move along quite quickly. When there is discretion, we're making sure that we're communicating with the community and that it's adjacent landowners earlier, so that if they do have comments or concerns, we can hear those and take those into consideration when we're making decisions. As a reminder, the land use bylaw is a requirement of the Municipal Government Act. Every single municipality in Alberta is required to have one. And the MGA is pretty specific about the things that are required in a land use bylaw, and then all of the many things that may be included, which typically are included in a municipality's bylaw. It sits towards the bottom of our legislative framework So it is where most people, when they are interacting with planning and development at the town, this is the document that they end up interacting with when they're getting permits. A lot of the things that are in here flow from the direction that is in our strategic plans, from our municipal development plan and area structure plans that are in our community. But ultimately, these are the primary regulations that we are reviewing when we receive a development permit application. And it's also the document that establishes when a permit is required. So we have kind of been working on this document since 2018, but in some chunks. So we had a body of work that happened 2018, 2019, and then things really got put on the back burner as other priorities became the top priority, as we had some staff turnover. And then we recognized that in order to move this forward, we did need some additional support. So we started working on it again in a concerted manner in 2023 and have been moving it forward steadily since then. We did put this out, a draft version of this bylaw went out to the public in February. It was on our website, it was publicized. We did a community survey, which council has seen the results of. And we have made changes to the bylaw since then. So since that draft went out, based on the feedback that we've received, also based on legal review and based on further staff refinement. And it does do a lot of things. One of the big things, as Director Fisher said, is that we do now have two different classes of discretionary use. So some discretionary use automatically goes to the Municipal Planning Commission, and others are held and under the authority of administration, the development officer. We always have the option to punt something up to the MPC if it feels like it deserves that public stage in making that decision-making process. But we are able to handle most of those in-house, so it allows us to move it along faster, but it still retains for the municipality the discretion if it's not necessarily a use that is appropriate in every single place of a district. We have also streamlined the districts in the land use bylaw, so we don't have 6 different R1 districts now. We have 6 residential districts in total, which really streamlines things, and hopefully that will reduce the number of bylaw amendments associated with redistricting, not necessarily with other types of land use bylaw amendments, but it should reduce the number of redistricting. We've also made some big strategic changes to establish some specific landscaping requirements so that we're not leaving that ultimately to the discretion of the development authority with no guidance as to what that looks like. And that is one area where we really did take a look at what some other municipalities are doing, and then we tried to take a look at what have we seen in our town over the last number of years, so that we're right-sizing the requirement to something that is feasible within our community and isn't too onerous for the developer. We've also reduced parking requirements in some key areas of town so that, say, as we are trying to revitalize our downtown, we don't accidentally end up in a circumstance where we are requiring buildings to come down in order to meet a parking requirement, when ultimately what we want to intensify and increase the activity in our downtown area. So as I said, we did do the public consultation this spring, early spring. We had the second survey, we held open houses, we were at the farmers market, we were at Parade of Programs, trying to raise awareness of the project. Overall, I would say the primary conversation I had with people was people that were interested in the expansion of where secondary suites might be able to occur within our residential district, which is one of the big changes on the residential side of things in this bylaw. We are where you couldn't do a secondary suite in the majority of town now. You can do a secondary suite in the majority of residential areas of town, provided your lot meets the site requirements. So making sure you've got enough parking and all of those sorts of things so that we're not creating an undue burden on the surrounding neighborhood. So I do think that there's lots of changes. They are very good changes that will allow Peace River to move forward. Land use bylaw is never done. It is a bylaw that is meant to be amended over time as the community changes. But this is a good a new threshold to work from. We do have a couple of small, very small changes that we know we want to bring forward at the public hearing. We have one diagram we want to add to the manufactured home dwelling unit definition in the definition section. And we were fighting with the numbering at the 11th hour in section 6. So you'll see that there is, I believe it's no section 6.11 for whatever reason. So we have to fix that and bring that forward before we adopt this for second and third reading, but it is ready for adoption and for us to move forward. So we do have for council 2 options tonight. The first would be to provide first reading, which will allow us to schedule the public hearing, which we anticipate to hold on August 11th. And the second is that council defer first reading, which would allow council to provide any direction that you might have if there were changes to the bylaw that needed to be made before council was comfortable moving forward. But that would obviously delay the implementation of some of these key changes. So we would like to proceed forward. We want to change when permits are required. There are certain circumstances today that we would prefer not to have to process a permit. We'd like to allow those accessory dwelling units on more sites, provide greater clarity to ourselves as we're working through the development processes, and also updating development processes to give people the opportunity to provide comment when there is an opportunity for us to incorporate that comment into the decision, and then to streamline those processes where it's a permitted use and we can just let people get on with their development. So it is our recommendation that council provide first reading to the bylaw this evening, and I can take any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you. I do know that a lot of background work for sure has gone into this document, and it looks quite different from the previous one, which was several years old. It's great that all sorts of updates have happened. Personally, I kind of like the charts that you kind of click there and yes or no is kind of pretty obvious. So, and some of the other changes, it will be interesting how it takes our community forward, sort of thing too. But councillors, Councillor Shannon?
I do like the charts very much, like that. Okay, number 1, I don't see any blade signs in here. That was, I looked under the signage and there was no blade sign, so I'd like to know about that. What was the rationale behind, why do we make people, like, that was one of the, out of all of it, that was one question I got a lot, was why are you telling me what I can put in my yard? And somebody said, what if I don't like trees and I want to have it all rock and just have an air, like, so we give them choices of like trees, but it's mandatory to put in a tree.
So I will start by addressing the blade signs. I believe they're called projected signs in the land use bylaw, and they are allowed. I did double check that after the workshop, just to make sure, but yeah, no, it is addressed and we can manage it and also say yes to them for sure. When it comes to the landscaping, I'm just going to flip to that page to remind myself exactly what we said. So we have given some additional direction or additional flexibility compared to the draft that went out in February. So now we are talking about having at least 1 tree or 2 shrubs located in the front yard. We do have some flexibility as well. If you've got site servicing to your dwelling that doesn't allow for enough distance, we can waive that requirement. And we can also waive the requirement if the developer, if the person who's building the home is a developer, or sorry, if the person who's building the home is intending to live in the home, so if they are building it for themselves, then we can waive the requirement for the tree in the front yard. And what this bylaw is doing is it's setting a standard for future development. So when we talk about this, we are talking about you're building a new neighborhood. Let's say we start to boom, as we all want to, and we're developing Saddleback Phase 5, and we're developing the rest of Shaftesbury Estates, etc. And we have a commercial developer coming to town, then that requirement is going to make sure that those neighborhoods that are getting developed are being developed with enough landscaping to make them beautiful places that people want to live. If someone is developing their house for themselves as an individual, we do have the option of waiving it, this requirement. And so that gives us a little bit of flexibility to deal with those situations where we've got one individual building one house, but we're setting a more uniform standard for our community as a whole.
Okay, and then my last question is probably Pat. This dust control, I had just noticed that recently from a question I got asked. And I didn't have a chance to look in here yet. So dust control, are we just talking like, in developments, like they have to, where they have to pave and stuff, or does the dust control, have to do with roads in town that are ours that are not paved?
I think it's specifically relating to things that we might request for discretionary information. Like how they might need to do dust control during construction of whatever the development is. Or if it's an activity and it's discretionary, how that could impact the neighborhood. The dust control for our own roads and stuff, that's an operations program separate. Right? So like the dust control on 80th Street isn't covered by this bylaw, that's something else.
Okay, and sorry, one last.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And then my other last one was, the blade signs, so they're still gonna be, if everybody on Main Street wants to get one now, they still have to come in and pay for another building permit or a development permit or that again, correct?
They would still have to come in to get a development permit for the blade sign, and because they're attaching it to a building permit as well.
Okay.
Other councillors? Councillor Ford?
Just, we were talking in a previous meeting about, storage containers. Is that part of this? Cause I couldn't find it.
Yeah, storage containers are within the accessory, so specifically the section that we were talking about for storage containers relates to the accessory buildings section. So that is section 8.1 of this bylaw. And when we're regulating storage containers in here, we are being specific to how we regulate them as an accessory building, so as a storage unit essentially on a property, and that is in here.
Okay, because one of the points that, or questions that I had brought towards me, for instance, sea cans in the back of a business yard, where we were gonna limit the number to one. However, some of the properties in town, if you say you're limiting the number to let's say one sea can, and that sea can is 40 or 53 feet long. What's the difference of having one 53-foot sea can compared to two 20-foot sea cans, which when you're dealing with square footage, which two sea cans will fit, but one big one won't? Is there anything we can do as far as language there, maybe going into square footage rather than saying one or two?
We could take a look at that. I do want to clarify that restriction to one is specific to the downtown area.
Yeah.
So the extent to which it would be a problem would be limited to the downtown, but that is something that we could take a look at. If we were going to do that, I would recommend that we still pass first reading, and then we could consider that and bring it forward.
Yeah, the only reason why I bring that up is I know of a business that does have two 20-foot sea cans, but yet if we limit it to one, then one sea can's not gonna, the one larger sea can may not fit on that property. So that's why I bring up the question.
Any other questions? Okay, then maybe someone would put forth the motion.
Move that council give first reading to bylaw number 2178, the land use bylaw.
Thank you. Any other discussion at this point in time? So what happens is first reading passes, then this goes to the public hearing, which is scheduled for,
Public hearing is scheduled for August 11th.
okay? And that's open to everyone.
Yes, we have, we're going to have the advertisement in the utility bills, and then we'll be doing all of our standard advertising for a bylaw amendment, so it'll be on our website, on social media. I think this one's probably big enough that we'll also be, spending a little money to put it on the radio. Maximize our exposure.
Great, thank you. And there's still opportunity for some changes if we pass first reading. Just clarifying things here. Thank you. Any other discussion at this point in time? Yeah. Okay, then everyone is clear on the motion. All those in favor? Great, it is carried. Thank you, Ms. Modi, and all your work on this over many years. Okay. So great to see. Next up, we have Ms. Modi, who's gonna, unfinished business, we don't have any. So current business, Ms. Modi is gonna talk about a subdivision timeline extension request.
Yes, thank you. So we approved a subdivision back in 2023. As the subdivision process involves us receiving the application, reviewing the application, circulating it to adjacent owners, also to relevant provincial ministries, et cetera, and then issuing a decision. And then once the decision is issued, typically a subdivision decision is issued with some specific conditions that the applicant has a year to complete, and then it can be registered at land titles. It comes back to the town for endorsement, where we sign off on the fact that all of those conditions have been met. And then they take that to land titles and they register the subdivision, and you have new private property. In this case, we've issued the decision. The decision is attached. There are some specific conditions. The applicant was working towards meeting them, didn't quite meet them all, but they have indicated that they want to continue to meet those conditions, and they are working on them now, provided we provide them with an extension. So that is council's option that the MGA provides. And we would like to allow them to move forward so that this subdivision can be finalized and we can endorse it and they can register the land titles. So just really quickly, the subdivision is up on Weberville Road. The subdivision itself, you can see on the very last page, the tentative plan of subdivision shows you kind of what all is actually happening here. So we would end up with, there's the parcel, which is almost a quarter section, would be split in two. There's also a municipal reserve lot that would be created as a part of this, and an access road easement. So we're not creating new road right of way, but a formal legal access easement that provides access both to the balance, to that municipal reserve lot, and also to an existing parcel out of that quarter section. So all of those are things that are consistent with our planning framework, including the area structure plan that is approved and on this land. So ultimately, council has a few options. First is that the applicant must submit to the subdivision authority the plan of subdivision or other instrument that affects subdivision no later than July 15th, 2026. So that is providing that 1 year extension. Or the second option would be to decline that extension. The advantages of the first are that it allows the applicant to complete the subdivision decisions. It extends the approval where no considerations that are relevant to this decision have materially changed. It reduces the additional red tape both for the applicant and for administration to undertake an application process again. And it keeps us working on other items that we're moving forward on. Financially, we would lose a little bit of revenue, but we would also save a lot of staff time to go through the application process. So ultimately, it is our recommendation that council extend the deadline by 1 year.
Thank you. So I note in here, there's a letter and other information about an access road of some sort to another parcel of land, and the access road has to go through this subdivision. I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so what's attached is the subdivision decision, which is quite a number of pages, and that is because the regulations for subdivision do require that we outline the feedback that we've received and how the subdivision authority has taken that feedback into consideration. There is an existing neighboring landowner who doesn't have legal access right now to their property. So this decision takes that into account by requiring that access easement be registered on title. And that will resolve that situation and provide them with the access that physically they use, but legally they don't have access to right now.
Thank you. So councillors, any further questions, clarification? Someone like to put forth the motion, Councillor Good?
Move the council extend the deadline for the submission of the plan of subdivision or other instrument that affects the subdivision to the subdivision authority or sub 2022-02 to July 15th, 2026.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Did you vote?
I didn't, sorry.
Okay, it is approved. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Modi. And Ms. Modi, it looks like maybe you're staying put. Community destination assessment update.
Yes, we wanted to bring this forward to council so that all of council is kind of up to date on where we are. So as you may know, we have a matching grant of $52,500 from the NRED program, which is a provincial program. And through that and the 50% contribution that the town has made, the town has been working on kind of two projects in tandem. And the first one is the Destination Development Association completing a community development, destination assessment. That's Roger Brooks. And he did come up to town and do his assessment and then presented at a workshop last week. Which I think that for everybody who was in the room, it was quite an engaging presentation and pretty enjoyable with lots of good ideas. But we'd like all of council to be aware. So we did hold the presentation on July 8th. I think we had about 55 people in the room, so it was pretty well attended. And we've definitely, our business retention specialist, Karine, has been receiving a lot of positive feedback since that time from the businesses that were in the room. We are still expecting to receive a written report from Mr. Brooks, and that will be made available once we receive it, as well as the presentation, which was recorded, will be going up onto our YouTube channel, and then we'll be advertising that, so anybody who doesn't want to see it can engage in it, or perhaps people can rewatch it. I think I want to. It was really quite that engaging. He did have lots of great suggestions, kind of split them into 5 key areas. So tourism and marketing, and how Peace River really needs to work more on marketing ourselves, which I think we've heard, but he gave us some really tangible examples of how we might do that. So I think that was pretty helpful in terms of trying to market ourselves as the base camp for Mighty Peace experience. And then also some tangible examples of how our business community can help themselves, including by each business grabbing onto their, say, Google business profile and making sure that it's accurate and that they are findable from an online perspective. Because he did note that for a lot of the pre-visit research that they did, they didn't really know what they were going to get until they got here. And so Peace River as a region, as a whole, as a community, not just the town, but the community as a whole, we're not doing ourselves favors online. And there's lots of opportunity for everyone to grow their presence and make us easier to find, and then hopefully easier to choose to visit and have people come here. The second one was around wayfinding and signage, and that one was it was for me a great example of how he came in blind. We did not talk to him about the things that were going on in town prior to his visit. It was a true secret shopper experience where it was him coming in with his expert lens, but to a community that didn't tell him about what we were expecting, because we are absolutely working on a wayfinding project that's going to address a lot of the things that he pointed out, but it definitely was a good example of how we're on the right track in terms of some of the other strategic moves that we're trying to make right now. Talked a lot about downtown revitalization. It was good to hear that a lot of the efforts that we have been doing are noted and are in the right direction. Definitely interesting concept that Roger talked about was the how the town is responsible, in his mind, for the curbside, basically, of the sidewalk. And then the businesses need to take on more of the business facade side of the sidewalk to try and enhance and beautify our downtown. Third one was around visitor experience and how we really need to pitch visitors on experiences and also take off our municipal lens when we're doing that and talk about all of the great things that people can experience within proximity of our community, rather than just within our municipal boundaries. And then more around business and community engagement, and how we can work together or encourage the businesses to work together to foster more strategic partnerships. So we are continuing to work on this. We're going to have an internal debrief. I think it's going to be later this week. And then we'll be working on how we integrate some of these great suggestions into our strategic plan, but then also into hopefully other people's strategic plans as well moving forward.
Thank you. You know, I thought it was a great presentation, and the part that stuck with me, well, a couple things, the base camp in particular, and also when we're advertising good things that we take it out from Peace River, not from the next, the closest municipal town other than Peace River sort of thing. So I thought that was kind of important because really we tend to stick in our boundary because that's supposedly what we are. Yep.
Even beyond that, one thing I picked up was within our own town. I think the Wayfaring stuff is terrific, but also when we're doing our street signs or road signs. And they say go, like the next time, it's almost like being on the highway, the next town they're talking about is 25, 30, 40, 50 miles away. Rather than the interim destinations, because I know for years we've talked about, it's very, very difficult for a person to find a place to put their foot in the Peace River. And not just Wayfaring, but to let people know that there's shopping on the West Hill. If you just come downtown and head back out going south, you may never know what exists, that there's a West Hill that even exists. If you hit the West Hill, theoretically, if you don't come over that peak, you may not even know that Peace River exists. Now that's less likely, but it's possible. Or you may just, my wife and I, because of this presentation, we decided to drive in from the Northern Sunrise side and look at the town. And you know, you don't see the town at all until you're about 3/4 of the way down the hill. The town is invisible as you come down the hill. Even when you're at the Welcome to Peace River side, all you see is a little piece through a kind of a valley of a hotel and a few other something buildings. That's all you see. You don't see the town even when you make the last corner to where you're going to make the turn to come into town or you're going to head across the bridge. You still don't see the town. That surprised me because I've always assumed you could see it from the top. I mean, I live here, but I kind of picture you see it when you come down the hill, but you don't. To me, that's really, it was this guy's presentation who pointed that out. It was shocking, actually. It was, it was an impactful presentation.
Any other comments for those that were able to make it? Okay, well, thank you. I think it's a great start. And one thing that he did mention though is that it takes somebody's time to do this, and it shouldn't be a side of the desk kind of effort. So also kind of noted that. But thank you very much. And perhaps someone would make a motion to accept this for info. Okay, Councillor Ford moves that council accept the community destination assessment update for information. All those in favor? Great, it is carried. Thank you. Next up, we have grants to organizations intake 2 awards. That's so awards from intake 2. This is Mr. Mugford tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this will be the second intake of 3 for the year. Just a couple of things to point out, the whole budget for the 2025 year is $50,000, so our total expenditures to date from the first intake were $29,380, so the remaining budget is $20,620. The initial allocation was roughly $16,667 per intake, so we've basically used 2/3 of the budget so far, roughly. And for this intake, there were four applications that were reviewed. You can see in the document here, the scoring. And, you know, as per usual, the options are really, it's down to council, how much they would like, if any amount, how much they'd like to allocate. So for option one, based on administration scoring, council could award a grant in the amount that coordinated with the scoring results. So in that case, the proposed allocation was outlined, which would basically allocate $14,900 spread over 3 organizations. So 7,450 to Glenmary School and Peace River High School, and 3,750 to Vision Learning. So the financial implication of that is there'd be a remaining budget of $5,720 for the final intake. Option two would be for council to provide direction as to the amounts that they would like awarded to each applicant. And option three would be to provide funding based on a proposed allocation, which is a variation of the evaluation scoring results. So in that case, Glenmary and Peace River High School would each be at 5,000, United Way would be at 1,000, and Vision Learning would be at 5,000. So again, that would be a $16,000 total. So advantage of that would be that council place emphasis on funding projects that support sustainable community events that draw significant economic activity, which is in line with the policy. Supports organizations that have not applied the council grants to organizations in the past and have valuable projects but are not aligned to the policy. Disadvantages is it may not be funding at the level that council would like to allocate. And in this case, again, they would only leave $4,620 for the third intake. So there's not really a strong recommendation from administration, as it's ultimately council's direction, how much, if any amount, they'd like to award to these groups. Thank you. Any questions?
So just to review the Glenmary and the Peace High, these were for provincial competitions of 2A basketball, boys and girls basketball. And United Way was tools for schools, was essentially a school supplies of sorts. Vision Learning was to help facilitate a program on, I think it was digital learning media, that sort of thing. So councillors, comments? Councillor Shannon?
I'd be willing to make a motion on option one.
So option one is the $74.50 for each of Glenmary and Peace High, United Way 0, and Vision Learning $3,750.
Yes.
Okay. You made a motion, right? Yep, okay. Okay, any discussion on the motion? Councillor Wojciech?
How do we determine in the application, like, let's just use Vision Learning for example, they're asking for 15,000, and how are we determining if their program's even going to be able to run if we only give them a partial amount? And how do we go about getting it back if it doesn't run? Just using Vision Learning for an example. So if one of these programs didn't go through because they didn't get the total funding they needed, I'm just kind of curious in how we go about that and what's the process involved in that.
I think in their application, there's some notation with respect to giving back the funds if something doesn't go forward. I could be wrong on that, but yes,
So it's, again, it's kind of speculative, like for each one. In the case of Vision, like I'm saying that the proposed budget for the entire project is $15,000 of sponsor revenue. And so if they have no other source other than what they're proposing to come from the town, then I think it's a fair question to say if they don't get their full amount, would they do anything? Because they're showing their expenses as 12,500 for instructor wages, 1,300 for print material, and 1,000 for market outreach and refreshments. So I think that's a fair question for Councillor Boychuk.
So if it's awarded and the policy says if they don't spend it or unable to spend it, then it comes back, is what Councillor Ford thinks the policy says. Councillor Shannon?
That's if they don't spend it on that specific project, they can't take it, spend it on something else. Yeah.
So any other questions, Councillor Boychuk? Does that answer your question though?
Yeah, it just makes it a little harder to decide, the funding there if we're not 100% sure if we're the only funder sometimes on these things, and the project, even though they have a lot of merit, if we can only give a little bit, would it fail, or would we be better off giving money to a different organization? It did answer it.
So I wasn't actually this time one of the scorers. I was neither A nor B. But I can say I did review this previously, and the scoring kind of reflects where administration landed on their application. It's not that what they're proposing to do doesn't have merit. It's just how closely does it align with the policy, and so the scoring kind of reflects that.
So Councillor Shannon suggests that she would be willing to make the change. Can she just do that with the motion on the books, or what's our way forward?
She's lots of friendly amendment.
Okay, what would that be?
A friendly amendment would be to remove the 3750 from Vision Learning and put it back in the pot for future applicants.
So the motion in the end would be to award $74.50 to Glen Mary School, $74.50 to Peace River High School, and stop there. That's yes, okay. Okay, so Councillor Shannon says that's her motion. Any other discussion? Councillor Card.
When is their function or event supposed to take place? What do they need the money for? Like, will they have an opportunity to reapply if they were able to fundraise some of the money, or we just cut them off here?
Well, in here someplace, I thought she gave a timeline when she was presenting.
I believe it was for fall, Councillor Karsh, and that's why they're working on it now.
I'm just concerned that if we don't give them anything, is that gonna leave them dead in the water?
Well, if they need 15,000, I would assume they're looking at other places, not only here. So I'm thinking that, even if we don't give it to them, they're still looking at it. If it matches someone else's criteria, then they will get the money from that source. I would think that was what I was.
Well, the nice thing about that one is because it's not tied to a specific weekend, like a lot of events, like basketball's happening on that weekend. Or that week rather, not weekend. This is a program that if we were to give Vision Learning Center some funds, they would have time to solicit or raise more funds from elsewhere and then launch the program when they do end up with the amount. And if not, then of course it can come back. So I guess it's not like, milk on the counter. It's not necessarily going to spoil right away. So I appreciate you trying to, kind of make this work and kind of massage your emotion a little bit, but I'm honestly, I'm okay with giving them a portion, and they may have a way forward to still pull off the program. I understand it's not the best fit for what grants to groups is in the policy, which is why it's not the whole thing. But but it's close enough that they did score some points and they might still be able to run this program if they're able to scrape together from elsewhere or whatever.
So, well,
I'm not trying to boomerang your stuff back and forth here.
so I'm going to read what the application says. It says, explain how your organization plans to be sustainable after funding. So this program is designed for a time-limited initiative to address an immediate need in the community for providing workplace, digital, and financial literacy training from September to December 2025. The grant funding will cover all instructional costs, materials, outreach, ensuring successful implementation. And their budget, the whole 15,000 seems to come from this grant application.
There you go.
So that's information in the application.
Madam Mayor,
Further?
just,
Yes.
just reviewing option one, I think there's a footing error at the bottom where total requested is. Because when I'm looking at it, like 7450 for each Columbia and Peace River High, that would equal 14,900. So the total, including the proposed 3750 provision, would actually be 18,650. So it looks like yeah. So it wouldn't be very much left of the third intake if we were to fund, vision. So,
Okay, so we know that the chart for option one, the total should be 18,650. And the motion would spend 14,900. So any further discussion? Everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? So
I'm opposed.
opposed? Okay, it is carried. Nobody said opposed. Okay. Next up, we have, the appointment of an auditor, Mr. Mumford. Maybe this is straightforward.
Okay, Madam Mayor, so each year we appoint our auditor. We currently have, so we'll just go through a very brief background. Section 280 and 281 of the MJ stipulates that we must appoint an auditor to audit financial statements. It's common practice to appoint the municipal's auditor as the auditor for the library established by the municipality's library board, or library bylaw. Last year was the first year that the library was audited. Prior to that, it was review engagements, and we missed including them in our motion. So the recommendation here would be under option one to appoint Metrics Group LLP as the auditor of the town of Peace River and Peace River Municipal Library for both 2025 and 2026 year end. And so the reason why we're doing this year and next year is our current audit service agreement with them expires at actually the 2026 year end would be their last engagement, at which point we'll be going out for a proposal again in 2027. So we're just looking to get them appointed for the next two fiscal year ends. Option two would be to define, which there's no advantages, and it would require us to basically enter into a new RFP process and potentially incur higher audit fees. So the recommendation is that council appoint Metrics Group LLP as the auditor for the town of Peace River and Peace River Municipal Library for the years ending December 31, 2025 and 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of clarification? Someone like to put forth a motion on this one? Councillor Good?
I move that we appoint Metrics Group LLP as auditor for the town of Peace River and Peace River Municipal Libraries 2025 and 2026 year ends.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor? Great, it is carried. Thank you, Mr. Mumford. And now you're going to talk to us about the leased vehicle buyouts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So 5 of the town's light trucks, so units, so 109, 110, 111, 112, 117 are reaching the expiration of their leasing term this year. Town has the option to buy the vehicles out to continue leasing or to trade them in and purchase or lease newer models. So on this chart, I included the current RBV along with the year make model and the odometer reading, but the most recent odometer readings that we had. So the average buyout per unit is $70,893.51. Currently, the leasing costs are $17,082.91 per unit per annum, with those payments going towards the depreciation on the units. All units have been assessed in good working order with the average mileage of approximately 19,521 kilometers. So on average, they're all very, very low mileage vehicles. So the option one is to buy the existing vehicles for an estimated cost of $89,467.56. This will reduce our leasing costs, lower the burden on our operating budget, and lower our financing charges, which will exceed the expected return on our investment. Disadvantage is it will increase the average age of our fleet. So by choosing to retain these units rather than trading them in and getting newer ones, it does age our fleet a little bit. And so there's an opportunity cost on that investment. So in theory, we could use that $80,000 for other things. Financial implication is a draw on the tax supported capital reserve for vehicles, machinery, and equipment. For the outright purchase of $89,467.56, and a yearly reduction of $85,415 off our operating budget. Option 2 would be to return the units to enterprise and lease new units. So that would reduce the age of the fleet and defer capital expenditures, but it would also increase our operating cost and increase our total cost of ownership. Option 3 would be to return the units to enterprise and just purchase new units outright, which would again reduce the age of the fleet, but it would have a larger immediate capital cost, and it would increase our total cost of ownership. Right now, new vehicles of this type, we're estimating approximately $90,000 per year. So, it would be a significant purchase if we were just to go and, purchase 5 new trucks outright. So the recommendation, or option 4 actually, would just be to continue to lease vehicles, and we see no advantage to that, but higher operating costs, and it would also continue to age the fleet. So the recommendation from administration that council approve the lease buyout for 4 F-250s, so unit 109, 110, 111, 112, and 1 Chev 1500 unit 117. For cost up to $89,470, with such purchase being funded from the tax supported capital reserve, vehicles, machinery, and equipment. And you'll take the questions.
So just so I have this clear, if we do the buyouts for the 5 vehicles, that costs us $89,000 some odd dollars. And if we didn't do the buyouts, we would keep paying $85,000 in leasing costs. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah, well, effectively right now, the amount that we're paying for leasing those units is the difference would go towards the depreciation on those units.
Okay, so the catch up here is that sooner or later we'll want to buy new vehicles, so we would expect at that point we pay the grand cost of a brand new vehicle at that point through capital.
So again, over the past few years, subject to check around 2019 or 2020, the town began working with Enterprise to purchase its vehicles. It's added a pretty significant burden to our ongoing operating budget. And so, the recommendation from administration that will come forward to the next council will be to look at the manner in which we purchase our light vehicles and determine whether or not the leasing model that we've been engaging in is still the right fit for our organization, or whether we want to entertain going back to a model in which we have a light vehicle replacement policy and we replace our vehicles through a more traditional RFQ process.
Thanks. Councilors, any questions, clarifications? It moves things from operating kind of to capital, as I understand it. So
If the vehicles were significantly higher mileage, or, you know, there may be situations where it makes sense to trade them in and purchase something new through one means or another, but in this case, they're all very low mileage vehicles, good condition, they've been well maintained. So the recommendation would be that we should buy them.
No, I agree with it all. I remember when we did not have this sort of thing and town trucks were dilapidated, chosen. Some might like that, but the others don't. Not anybody in particular. Didn't say anybody in particular. Okay, so, Mr. Buckford has brought us, some recommendations here. Would you like to go forth with a motion on this one? The Councilor Carr, would you like? Okay,
Like to move that we buy out existing vehicles for an estimated cost of $89,467.56.
Wrong.
You wanna, do you wanna read that whole thing?
I'm sorry.
the one that lists the,
Item 5 there.
yeah,
Here, Brad.
it's the very last thing above the signatures, maybe, maybe that one.
Okay, I'd like to move that, council approve the lease buyout of 4 Ford F-150s units, or 250s, I apologize, units 109, 110, 111, and 112, and 1 Chevy 1500 unit 117 for a cost of up to $89,470, with such purchase being funded from tax supported capital revenue, vehicles, machinery, and equipment.
Great,
That was better.
okay. So, we're clear on the motion? Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, it is carried. Thank you, Mr. Mugford. And for the next item, I'm not sure if it's, Mr. Mugford or someone else who's going to, give us a, 2025 capital projects update.
It's got my name on it, Madam Mayor, so. We'll start with me, and if there's specific questions, that your directors can speak to, and they can jump in. This is, just a very high level qualitative update, of our capital projects. So we list the description of the project, capital budget, the status of it, and then some comments. So as you can see, there's, I won't go through the whole list, but if, there's a few items that we've already completed. Usually those are ones where it's just something where we can just go and purchase it. There's a lot that are in progress, and, depending on the project, it's either in the RFP stage, tender documents being prepared, or we're already into construction on it and just isn't complete yet, those types of things. But if there's any specific questions the council has, then we can do our best to field them. Thank you.
Okay, I've got one. Right under your photocopier, it says Enterprise Resource Planning Project. Preliminary research ongoing. What would that one be?
So that relates to our accounting system, Diamond, which is being decommissioned by the vendor in 2029. So it's no longer going to be supported. And so we're in the preliminary phase. So right now, I think, subject to my memory being accurate, I think we had $75,000 in the budget for this year to begin the work of selecting a new ERP for the town. It's going to be significantly more expensive than that. I think in the capital plan, we may have had a number there in the 400,000-ish range. I'd have to check, but it's going to take a bit of time to figure out exactly what we want and plan that implementation over the next couple of years. At this point, the finance manager and myself have had discussions with vendors. We're trying to figure out what's the appropriate software for our organization. It's tough as a small municipality because a lot of the big providers, Oracle, SAP, they're kind of geared to dealing with larger organizations, and we don't have the headcount to support the costs associated with those. So, we'll be looking at what other municipalities are doing, because one fortunate thing about this is there's a lot of organizations that use the software we're currently using, and so there's a lot of us that are in the same boat on this that are going to be doing this change over the next couple of years. It's going to be a significant amount of time for our staff, because there's a lot of process mapping that has to happen prior to making the change, and so there's a lot of testing that has to occur during the whole thing. So.
Okay, and just to clarify, the 101st Street slope stormwater and the 90th Street stormwater culvert repairs, are we likely to see work on those if they still need to be, planned, etc.?
Hope so.
Okay.
The designs for both are done. It just needs to be updated. We just got notice at the end of June that we were not successful in applying to the province for funding for that, which would have been really good for our taxpayers if we didn't approve for that. So we'll work on moving it forward. Hopefully we see some work by the end.
And the other one, I see the cul-de-sac on 19th, which I understand is that lower west piece in that area where
Is that revisit?
it's in lower west piece where there's a lot of, I don't know, called townhouses or duplexes, but anyways, it's not going ahead basically because the property owners did not want it to go ahead, right?
Correct, that answer. We had initially included that in the capital program as a provisional item. If they approached us with a local improvement or request for a petition for a local improvement, then we don't incorporate it into the overlay project that's underway down in Lower West East right now. But the residents there decided not to go forward.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing because it would have finished off that little section very nicely. And save on the dust problem and the mud problem too. But is there anything else in terms of fire hydrants? Because that comes up, fire hydrant business is going along as planned.
Yeah, so we've done some replacements under our operating budget, like our own staff have actually done a couple things and replaced on their own. I'm just working on a package to get a vendor or a contractor to do the ones that my team was not comfortable addressing with the resources.
Great. Anyone else with questions at this point? Councillor Carr?
So with us being declined the grant for the 101st Street, so this is there other areas we could apply for funding, or was that a one-shot deal, or?
So the program we applied for was for those specific projects. We did 2 applications under the local municipal initiatives program. It's a sub-program under the strategic transportation initiative program, or what the STIP program from the province. So that's the one that covers like any of the bridge structures and airports or any of their other strategic programs. What I was told was we were pretty highly rated, but just there were some others that ended up higher priority. Under that program, if we wanted to apply for more money again, 12-foot Davis Park, we could reapply for the bridge project that needs to be done there for rehabilitating that bridge. And that's pretty much the big one. We're always, as an administration, on the lookout for reasonable funding opportunities. If they are timely and they make sense and we have capacity to do the work is a consideration we also have to factor in. CEO Miller is very connected and was sending me some the other day talking about if we could look at. So certainly other programs, other funding programs are something we always with these 2 projects specifically. We also had an amount approved out of our reserve. So the grant funding would have been icing on the cake. It's not small potatoes. It would have been close to like $1 million of taxpayer money we didn't have to find. But if we'd started construction before we got notice of approval, we would have been ineligible for the grant funding. So we had to wait to see that process through. But we're funded in a way that I think we should be okay to proceed with construction.
Question.
I noticed the fill station is not on the list of capital projects. I know the money was put in the budget for it. I'm just wondering why that's not on there and where that's at.
There's some, I think that was just how the report got pulled from our financial software, but I haven't moved on it. It's low on my priority list of the number of projects we've got going, my personal workload. We will, if we've got any contractors that are wanting water to use for their operations, we do have portable meters. We are setting them up accounts and making sure that they can get it. We are not being overrun with calls for that as a service.
Okay, any other questions on this one? Okay then, maybe someone would like to move the acceptance for information.
I move the council accept the capital projects update for information.
Thank you. So any last minute clarification? Everybody's clear on the motion? Good, all in favor? Great, it is carried. Do we want to take a 5-minute break now, or do you want to wait a bit? Okay. The next one, Mr. Fisher, additional paving request. And thank you, Mr. Mumford.
Additional concrete? Main Street concrete?
Yes.
There's additional paving on one part of things here, so whatever you're gonna talk about.
So my RFP is on Main Street concrete stuff. So in 2023, we partnered with Transportation and Economic Corridors to address removing the loose brick and the shifted brick on Main Street. And so we're working through that project currently. It's in construction. So basically, the initial plan had us partnering with them to reduce the number of contractors that would be working in the same area and reducing kind of overlap where our contractor could be ripping out work that Transportation and Economic Corridors' contractor is doing, right? If we have to do a curb replacement, get a nice little patch on brand new pavement. Nothing cuts nicer than fresh pavement. And that goes both ways. If they had to do something with their work, they could be damaging our new concrete that we put in. So overall, it's a bunch of coordination between the town and tech, but it ends up with a better product overall. So that said, as we've been working through kind of the west side of the street, there's a number of sort of extra pieces of work that have been identified where as we pull out the brickwork, we have the opportunity to reduce some of the trip hazards that were present. We have the ability to take out additional panels to avoid future ponding issues or future like issues where water or snow and ice can accumulate. And so as we work through this, I've got some numbers in here. Essentially what's happened is I budgeted for $562,000. We're budgeted for $705,000 overall for the program. That includes what was spent in 2023. So kind of leaves about $550,000 remaining. And then we have another $150,000 budgeted this year in sidewalk maintenance and kind of improvement work for sidewalks, right? So between those two numbers, the current base construction contract for quantities with Transportation and Economic Corridors is $562,000. Just on the west side and down along sort of the other side of the Heart River, there's some sections that were kind of additional and improvements as we went through the work. We've identified about $58,000 worth of additional work that will kind of improve some of the para-ramps, replace some of the aprons to like alleys and stuff that are issues, do some of those concrete panel replacements, and kind of just result in, again, a better finished product. As they're starting to work on the east side of Main Street, as they work their way on the east side, there's a good chance that we'll find some order. I'm currently funding those improvements out of the maintenance budget, the $150,000. The amount that I included with an MOU with transportation wasn't all of the brickwork. It was trying to get as much as we could south of the VPs. So from the traffic circle down to the corner and then up around in front of the mall there. If we would like, there's some additional sections around the traffic circle that could be added to the contract. So to catch the rest of the brickwork around the perimeter, we would need, on the outside of the traffic circle, we would need approximately $300,000 additional funding. And that would take the brickwork on Main Street, not the offshoots out towards the inn or towards Co-op. But Main Street from around the traffic circle, the exterior of the traffic circle all the way down. We'd like to get the interior of the traffic circle. It's another $250,000. It's a pretty significant area. I don't think it's very well trafficked. And then there are two sections in front of BPs that are quite deteriorated that are not in their original contract. I would suggest including those. I would need about $40,000 to include that. So that's the first piece. My recommendation as administration would be to approve $340,000 to be funded out of our general infrastructure, our tax supported infrastructure reserve to fund additional work here. So that would include around the DP's area, all the way around the exterior of the traffic circle, exclude the interior of the traffic circle. And then give me a little bit of leeway to deal with some new issues if they come up along the east side of the street here. I think I hear a lot of complaints about the sidewalks down here. We have spent quite a bit over the last number of years since I started in the organization. I think this is a further commitment that council wants to do more. It certainly improves the look of downtown, how it feels, makes it nicer to visit, walk, commute, create a connected community. So that's the big stuff. Look for questions.
Councillor Carr, and then Councillor Scannell and Councillor Shannon.
The area you mentioned last meeting on the traffic circle itself, on the high side of it, where the curb is all deteriorated, is that being replaced?
I believe they've ripped a section of it out already to replace it. Yeah, that's on the south side of the traffic circle.
North side,
North side, south side.
North side.
I'll have to talk to them about that. I remember discussing it with the consultant. I'm not sure on the situation. But it was our operator that broke it.
Councillor,
nonetheless, yeah.
Councillor Scannell.
So that's gonna be the same crew that's here. They're already tooled up. It's gonna happen this year. It just, instead of it happening later, sometimes probably much later as these things go, that gets it all done this summer while they're already kind of, let's say, in the way.
Yeah,
And it keeps them from having to come back in.
this is a conversation we're having with transportation economic corridors pretty regularly. I'm very cognizant of trying to ask for too much additional work to get done. Because it could result in like delayed charges or something. But the contractor that is doing the concrete work has capacity and an interest in taking on additional work here. It would be the same crew, the same contract. We would just amend our terms with tech to deal with the extra.
These things don't get cheaper in later years. Nothing has gotten cheaper over time. That, unless someone wants to like surprise me, but that's not what I've seen. So now seems like a good time. Thank you.
Councillor Shannon, then Councillor Ford.
So they're like Councillor Scamborn said, they're all tooled up and doing what they're doing. I mean, what if you wanted them to do a spot, the street over, one spot or something, or two spots, that, but you can't do that, right? I'm just throwing it out there. I know that that's probably not gonna be.
nervous about that and aware that there's a spot nearby that is really bad, that also needs to be addressed. I have other means for some smaller areas, but if there are specific concerns, Councillor Shannon, if you can email them to me, and CO Miller, and we can see if we can sneak it in this year as well, but try to make sure that it's on the next year's program.
Councillor Ford?
Yeah, mine goes back to Councillor Carr comments about the traffic circle on the north end of Main Street. In my own opinion, it seems that traffic circle, like with the brickwork and the curb, it always seems to get damaged because of a snowplow going around. Or if you get a big truck and it happens to drive over top, and that's where our bricks and a lot of that damage is happening. Have we also looked at, instead of doing like an identical replacement, if we did a little bit of a different design type, like the traffic circle north of Co-op, where if the truck happens to drive over it, it's sloped where it won't damage?
No, that wasn't the scope of the project, and so like it's kind of late in the game to be looking at that kind of change, I think. There'll be it's different equipment that comes in and does like rolled curb, for example. So, I think it's probably late in the game to be making that kind of change.
And just looking at future damage.
Yeah, and I'm aware that it's our operator hitting it with the plow and graders.
So anyways, I think it stood up rather well. I know that the brick itself, it has had replacement once, or I don't know, some work done anyhow over time. But I kind of like the brick and I like the colored concrete because I think it adds some color to our downtown. And frankly, I like the brick and the color in the traffic circle because it's a nice pattern of sorts. But anyhow, I understand you can stamp concrete now in the future with wonderful new ways of doing things at a little price. But so the north side of the big traffic circle, you're gonna get them to look at that because they haven't done anything there. They've worked on the south side.
Yeah, specifically for the curb, I'm gonna have a discussion with them. I remember talking with the consultant about it.
Yeah.
They don't recall, I thought it was in, but might not have been. But if this goes ahead, I'd look at trying to get as much of that. I'm hoping that it's going to deal with the brick around the traffic circle. Not the interior piece. I would kind of advise against doing the interior piece. I think if you said, where would you spend $250,000, I could find better spots to spend that money for that. But the rest of it, I think, is probably a good long-term spend.
Needs help there.
There's a section towards sort of that Peace Valley Inn. I would advise on waiting with that section. It's in Peace Valley back there. Just because I think that there's some utility work that needs to happen, and some of my utilities are closer to the brickwork side. So I would advise against that in the immediate. That's something that should be addressed when we deal with utility there.
Okay, so administration is thinking the best plan here is to transfer an additional $340,000 from the general infrastructure reserve to this project to support additional sections of brick removal, which would be those around Boston Pizza, correct?
Around Boston Pizza and the exterior of the traffic circle, minus the sections that head off to the side streets.
The spurs kind of, and the sidewalk panel replacement as recommended, and the sidewalk part of things is it number 2 here?
The panel replacements, so that'll be the $40,000, so that I've got additional budget to deal with.
Around Boston Pizza?
No, as they come down the west side of the street, if we find additional sections that need to be replaced. To avoid ponding when they're brick, so.
Okay, so the brick sections in front of Boston Pizza, the recommendation is to replace them?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, good. Okay, I'm getting this now. Any further clarification before somebody puts a motion forward? Counselor Scarborough?
No clarification, I'm gonna make a motion.
Great.
Long agenda, let's keep it moving. I move the council directed Mint to transfer an additional 340,000 from the general infrastructure reserve to project CE 035 to support additional sections of brick removal and sidewalk panel replacement as recommended by administration.
Thank you. Any clarification needed? All those in favor of the motion? Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Good luck with all of that. Okay, next up, Mrs. Parsons with the policy P1142B compensation rates for municipal election workers.
Thank you, Mayor Mountain. So this one is pretty straightforward. We're just looking to repeal policy P1142B, compensation rates for municipal election workers. Administration just feels this is dealt with better administratively during the election process and planning, as opposed to having it set in policy. You can see the rates are quite low now. In the current policy, when it was set in 2021, $18 an hour. One of our municipal counterparts, Northern Sunrise County, is currently advertising to hire election workers, and they're advertising at a rate of $25.47. So we're just not, the policy wouldn't be competitive. And myself personally don't feel the need to bring the policy back every 4 years, just simply deciding appropriate rates at the time of election. Take any questions?
Counselors, any questions? Counselor Carr?
Now, are we looking at changing this because Northern Sunrise is offering 25.47? Like, what are our other neighbors offering?
Our other neighbors haven't started advertising yet. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that we're gonna offer 25.47, and I'm not saying that we're changing it because of what Northern Sunrise County is paying. Simply that we need flexibility when it comes to setting the rates for election workers to make sure that we are at minimum competitive with our regional partners. Why would you come work for the town of Peace River to earn $18 an hour when you could go work for the county election for 25.47? So it's just not saying that that's the rate we're gonna pay. We'll look at our rates of pay for our employees. We'll look at all of the region and determine what the best rate of pay is. But obviously, $18 an hour in comparison to 25.47 is not a reasonable difference in my opinion.
Have we ever had trouble filling the positions at 18? Was it 18.47? $18, sorry.
I can't speak to that. I wasn't here. Presumably things went okay. They had the election. But that was 4 years ago. So that's a big time difference between trying to pay people $18 an hour 4 years ago and trying to pay people $18 an hour now, in my opinion.
Counselor Shan?
Gonna disagree with you, Brad. I know a little bit about this, and I happen to know of a lot of places that pay a heck of a lot more than that as well, to get good quality people, trustworthy, with integrity. So I would back the raise. And yeah, I would totally support that.
Any other questions for clarity? Would someone care to put forth a motion on this matter? Counselor Ford?
Yes, I put a motion on the floor that council repeal policy P1142B, compensation rates for municipal election workers.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? I think it's carried. Thank you, Ms. Parsons. Next up, municipal police model study update, Mrs. Miller.
Thank you, your worship and council. Just wanted to provide a bit of an update. As you are all aware, we received a $30,000 grant to conduct a municipal police transition. It was the municipal policing transition grant. To do a policing study, we did issue an RFP. Out of that, I believe I had 9 responses. The bids ranged between 83,201 and 139,580. We did have one outlier that was 48,550. We have awarded the contract to an organization called BLU Alliance for a total project cost of 87,500. BLU Alliance comes with quite a bit of experience conducting such studies. They did conduct the City of Grand Prairie's police service model review. They're also managing the policing transition. They have done Hardesty, they have done First Cree Nation. And the deliverables specifically outlined in the RFP, they are to explore existing model of contracting with the RCMP, explore and incorporate promising proven policing models, so study other practices, consider the community engagement through studies, through surveys and whatnot, to get a sense of our victimization and public safety measures, what they would like to see. They're to assess the impact of the inmate release from the remand center into our community. And at the end of the day, they're to provide counsel, the community, with a perspective of policing models that directly address the public safety concerns. And the project is anticipated to be finished at the end of November. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is all because we have been basically directed rather forcefully, I would say, by Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services to apply for this $30,000 grant, implement it. And so we're going to be spending another $57,000 approximately of our other monies to satisfy his request. So this should be interesting. Councillor Shannon.
Was his a request or was it a suggestion?
I think it was somewhere between a strong suggestion and if you don't do this, quit talking to us about any of your policing issues. That would be my take, of course. Others might have a different one. So any further questions of Mrs. Miller on this one? Would someone move the acceptance of the briefing note for information? Councillor Good.
Can I ask a quick question?
Council, municipal police ball study update for information and with thanks for the province for approving the grant.
Yes, we thank them for approving that 30,000. We do thank them for approving that 30,000. I don't think we wrote a letter saying that. Any further discussion? It was clear, yes.
I believe Councillor Boychuk or Deputy Mayor Boychuk had a question.
I'm just kind of
Deputy
curious of what type of data this is going to give us on helping us resolve our problems and what kind of guarantee the Alberta government is giving us by spending this money and getting this report done. Or is it just a report to see if we need the RCMP, or are they going to look at the whole crime situation? Are they going to look at, because in his letter he talks about helping us with our social issues and stuff like that. And so it's just kind of curious, is this report going to give us some hard data to come back and verify the social issues that we're having? Does anybody know?
He wanted data. Sorry, CEO Miller, your thoughts?
Sorry, well, I do know that they're gonna pull all the RCMP stats and look at the crime index and the number of RCMP, and they'll look at, as opposed to other municipalities our size and the region and the size of territory that the RCMP is serving. They'll also look at what it would like if we had sheriffs. They'll look at our CPO program. They'll look at the APEX stats. So we're gonna get all kinds of data. I'm not sure exactly the goal at the end of the day of the study is to say the best policing model for our community is X, and X could be straight RCMP, it could be RCMP and CPO, it could be Sheriff's Department and not RCMP. We have no idea what the recommendation, it could be our own police force. I mean, Lacombe and Tabor, And there's another one starting up recently now, so there's other communities our size that actually have their own policing force. And it could be, that could be the recommendation that comes out of the study. I really have no idea what to anticipate. But I do believe it'll be fulsome and meaningful, the data that they pull that's gonna support the recommendations.
Okay, thank you, CEO Miller. I really like the part that he says he's gonna give us considerable options that the province can fund and address social disorder and just not policing. So I do believe this may be a valuable study to partake in our community at this time, for
I
sure.
have a way of turning Councillor Boychuk's volume up. Is there a way of making it louder from there? If the speaker's on the TV, it probably has some volume.
That's probably mumbling, Don. Sorry. Did you need me to repeat what I was saying there?
So
Favor of the motion, which was to accept this as information.
Sorry, I had technical difficulties there. I couldn't hear I couldn't hear the motion.
Okay, Ms. Parsons, could you read the motion, please?
Move that council accept the municipal police model study update for information with thanks to the province for approving the grant.
All those in favor of the motion?
It's at 100.
It is now carried. Okay, next up we have the Peace Regional Mental Health and Addictions Task Force Report. Deputy Mayor Boychuk, Councillor Carr, and Councillor Good, I believe we're bringing us information back at this point. So whoever wants to speak, carry on.
I'll let Councillor Boychuk speak to what we talked about, and then I'll come in after that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Good. When we were meeting, we were just more specifically trying to decide what specific tasks or objectives the municipal of Peace River should be looking at. And we came up with a few things that we were, discussing, like the empty building bylaws, crime, and the safety of citizens in our core and stuff like that. We looked into what we're addressing with housing and awareness, and we came up with a few ideas, but Don took some time and inputted a lot of data and made a pretty decent report to share with ourselves here. But I guess the main discussion that we want to have is how do we want to communicate what we've done and address the things that we want to do, and what things are we capable of doing, and what are within our boundaries to do as far as advocating and things like that. So I'll turn the time over to Don there, and he can explain the rest.
And one of the things that I was discussing with Mark was that the report, the actual report itself, was quite good. It had good information in it. It really brought everybody's point of view to the fore. But if it was going to be public facing, my feeling is that it wasn't presented in the best manner that it could have been presented, and it was just basically words on a piece of paper. Not a whole lot of thought given to design and the actual communication aspect of it. And one thing I think we've seen is that we want to find out, we wanted to discuss, are there ways that we can improve the and basically taking off of what the town has been doing in terms of its public outreach over the last number of years. It's been improving our level of communication visually, verbally, the presentation of it to the point where people are commenting on social media about how much more open the town is, how much more information that they're getting. And it's not just pieces of paper with a whole pile of words and we're putting it up on Facebook or whatever. There's good graphics behind it, there's good presentation, there's good kind of aesthetics behind it, and it makes for a more palatable product. And so I put together a report, and it's a draft, it's not the report itself. Because I wanted to see what would happen if I put some work into it and what I could come up with, that I could share it on top here, just for the visuals. If it was, if I email it, can it be shared? Okay, should I email it to you, Kayla?
Sure.
Okay. Just take a second here. And this, it's basically more for the visual and for the idea of how we can present things going forward. So let me know when you have that, Kayla. I'm not sure. And I also have offered to work with Mark on communications that we have going forward, because I think the two of us work fairly well together, and three of us obviously I think would too, of coming up with the messages that we want to put out in this area and getting the information ready more for the public. We also have some other ideas we'd like to bring to maybe assist a lot of people in access to some of the information that the town has, and maybe bring it forth in another area, and I can do that too with Mark and Brad's help. So. The ideas and stuff that are presented are not necessarily the ideas that will come out in the report. It was more just to get it into a format that we think is a bit more attractive and maybe a bit more
So
ready for public facing.
you're talking about the summary report that was as a result of the community engagement by the minister.
Yeah,
You're
reformatting.
reformatting
Took a lot of that information, right?
Okay.
And I know it's not our report,
Mhm.
but it was to assist that group and to offer our services to that group. too. And Mark, you can give your comments on it, because you were the one who sort of saw it first from a not having done it point of view.
Sorry, could you just repeat what you wanted me to give comments on there, Don?
Just comments on your overall impression of this compared to, with a view to assisting the organization of the group to put that group together, the meeting together, to assist them in communicating some of the issues that they would like to bring forth to the public. And you can basically just scroll down. It's not really necessary to read.
Okay, I don't have it on the screen here, so you just tell me which page you're talking about there?
You can bring up the copy I emailed to you, Mark, if you wanted to. It's the same one you saw the other day.
Yeah, no, I have it in my hands. I just don't have it on the screen, so I just
That's what I'm
wasn't.
saying, it's not so much, yeah, that's why, again, it wasn't as much for the content that was there, and I could send it to everybody if you wish. But.
Sharing now.
Okay, I got it now here.
Still not huge, that's okay. Maybe if we do it better next time, a better thing, but. So we were basically gonna offer our services to the organization to assist them with communication and going forward. That was really it.
So from this distance, it looks good. However, so one of the questions I think is that the three of you were going to discuss was, what are the suggested action forward points? Like what actions
I'll throw
are,
a couple of the ideas we came up with though.
If you want to add to her,
Sorry,
I just want to add to her question.
oh, sure.
Are these gonna be recommendations that you're giving, in general, or are these like how the municipality can help?
I wouldn't even say recommendations,
Well,
more
not
ideas.
recommendation, ideas, but it's from a municipality, lens. It's not, you're not saying this is what the town, like the whole community should be, this should be just.
No, I
municipal.
don't think we speak for that.
Exactly, I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
This is the task force.
Yeah, this is more to come up with formats and tools that we feel that we could assist the task force with. And wanted to offer our services to do that. One of the other ideas we came up with, and Mark can speak maybe a bit more to this, is that we have the FCSS brochure that we have, for example, which by the way is phenomenal. It really is. That is the one sheet that has all the services that are provided. And we also have little booklets, again, phenomenal. And all of those organizations are there and accessible to people if they know where they all are. But the actual PDF document, the one pager, doesn't have hyperlinks. So if it was put out and we could do it, it would do the work to put all that information together, create the hyperlinks to where that document becomes a resource that people can go to one site and be able to link through, take a look, well, I need this, click on there, click on there, click on there, which doesn't exist. There's no central repository that we can find in Peace River where all of the community service organizations are so well communicated on those documents are easily accessible to the public in one place where they don't have to then go cut, paste, retype and go click somewhere else and hunt down to get the data. So we wanted to again, offer our services to assist in that process. And it came out from a comment that was made in the original report, which was that if everybody does their little bit to help, then a whole pile of stuff gets done. And that came out to an extent with a comment that Mark made. And when Mark and I were discussing it, it was a comment that my wife made about, she said, I know I'm helping at the where they provide lunch at the soup kitchen. But she said, I don't know if that's doing anything. And well, it's the one thing that was done, because once they had that meal, they were fed for that day. That solved an existing problem on that day, which is certainly not nothing and is certainly something. But if everybody does a little something that they can do effectively and works on this project, I think we can get a lot done. And so that's really what the basics of this was, from the three of us getting together, was to talk about how we can find out the people who want to do the one little something and put them all together into a good communication and improve the communication on those ideas. And again, a lot of it's based on the good work that the town's been doing as a good example of what can be done when it's done right.
so you're basically saying that the town's role with respect to the task force would be to help with communication? That
could be, and we would offer our services to help, because we don't want to put a lot of work on the town staff. It's not necessary to do it. It's not like some of us don't have skills.
So I guess I'm gonna go back to, I'm reading the motion in front of me and I can see how your take on it is slightly different than my take. My take was that the group was going to come back to council with, some basic, the report said this, we'll pick a few things out of it, what we think the town could move ahead on helping, and that we discuss and go forward, but I totally see how you read this, and I just read.
And I don't think we're even finished with what we want to do. That's what I'm saying. I
So-
don't think that one meeting was enough to figure out what we wanted to do.
So I guess my question still goes back to, doing, I think it also goes back to what is the purpose of the mental health task force now in the future? And relative to town, a town committee as such and the support that goes with that. Like, I don't know that I'm clear on that aspect, which is different than this motion reads. Councillor Shannon?
I was the same as Mayor Manzer. That's exactly what I thought too, but I see where you're going with it. That might come shortly here. But what was my point going to be now? That just went right out of my head. I should have made some comment before that. It was going to be, oh, I know what it was going to be. So that, when you mentioned, okay, well, it's a town committee. So therefore, we're going to give them free services and we're going to give them free administrative support if needed. We're gonna give them free communication advice. Okay, how is that gonna be paid for, and are we doing this for all of the committees of the town?
I think my comment when I got involved, and again, I'm speaking for my own comment when I got involved, was I wanted to work with Mark and with Brad to see what we could come up with to start taking some of this forward. Now, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know where it was gonna go because I hadn't discussed it with Brad. We hadn't discussed it with Mark. But it was basically to talk to Mark and Brad. We were gonna meet together and try and figure how we could get this going forward. And there's a lot of good people involved in taking this forward. But again, one of the things we came up with is that there's no clearinghouse. There's no single place where everybody can get the information and can reach out and knows how many different organizations are available to them. Mark talked to me about all the different services that are available, Stepping Up for one, Restorative Justice for another. There's a whole bunch of organizations out there doing their part in this whole scenario. But I don't think it's accessible possibly as much to a lot of the people that need it or whatever, that's all. We can assist in that area. It's really simple. Not trying to make it that.
Yeah,
I
so-
understand your point too, that you wanted to sort of suggest how we could solve the problem to a degree.
Well,
And this is to one degree, one of the things we can do to take them a little further to solve it.
But I also think I think we should come to a point where we figure out the role of the mental health task force going forward. They've got to this point where they have the community brought together and did their summary, which you've remade, worked on. And, I can see the point of doing that. And I do see the point of the clearinghouse, which to a certain extent, Peace River Aboriginal Interagency Committee does, but not in the sense of homelessness. It's more the Aboriginal cultural aspects and how those agencies feed into that. So I still think that somehow or other, we need, as a town council and admin, figure out the Peace Regional Mental Health Task Force goals going forward. Like, they brought us to this point, but going forward, is it a town committee, which means terms of references are laid out, how people fit into the committee are laid out. And, if it's a clearinghouse kind of thing, that just becomes the role of also our role on the committee somehow. But the committee right now, I don't know if they consider themselves a clearinghouse. They've done it to a large extent with mental health and how they've drawn that aspect into their conversations and whatnot. But I still think we need clarity somehow on where we're going. But I like the communication aspect because it's totally important. Councillor Boychuk, or Deputy Mayor Boychuk, and then Councillor Ford.
One thing that I'd like to mention is even as the task force, we didn't communicate very well what we are and stuff like that. But the very important thing that we have going for us right now is we have communication between the Canadian Mental Health Association, Recovery Alberta, and the RCMP, and the shelter, and all of our regional areas there. So it's a pretty vital group to find out what's literally going on behind the scenes around a lot of our social issues and how we as municipal politicians can advocate for better things for our community. So, um, not saying I just wanted to bring that forward because it's not something we really well advertised of as what we do and how we do it, you know, and who we work with. And it's important, I believe, to for the town to have that communication with those agencies. So that's kind of where why I was bringing it, and all of our counselors on the task force are bringing it. Each one of them is bringing it to their council at this time to see what their council's role should be on this task force, or if it should maintain. So that's kind of the question coming back to our council. But because it's a Peace River based one, you know, we have a few more options of ownership maybe, and along that line.
Councillor Ford and then Councillor Shannon.
Yeah, I see exactly where you're going with this. We did, or we had one of our sponsors at the Alberta Community Crime Prevention Association happens to be the city of Edmonton that has done this. I do see where Mayor Manser's going with the committee as far as of seeing what the role of that role is going to be in the future. I will dig into my handles that I have at home. That communications piece you're talking about, I totally fully understand it because I have a copy from the city of Edmonton that talks about homelessness, policing, shelters, reach program, and it's all laid out in a handout with this one's not digital, so it doesn't have a hyperlink, but that's exactly what they've done. So if I can share that with you guys, I will.
Sure. Councillor Shannon, you had a pointer.
No, actually, that's okay. I figured it out.
Any other comments?
Well, just one.
Yeah.
This one, we didn't know where we were gonna go when we started, Mark and I didn't really know where we were gonna go when we started the conversation, and unfortunately, Brad couldn't be there for the time for circumstances beyond his control. And so we decided just to brainstorm to see what we could come up with and bounce ideas around. And the report I showed Mark was not to say it's better than or different than or whatever. As a matter of fact, one of the comments Mark made on one of the iterations I had was, well, these are ideas that were not in there. And I said, you're absolutely right. And that's why we're not bringing it forward as being the report, because it's not their report. It was basically to sit there and say, given this kind of information, we think we can, all we were thinking of is, how can we assist? And it wasn't even really the town could assist, though I think we can. But I'm not trying to put other work on other people here either. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Scammerdorn?
So was there sort of a desire from people around the table of the number of kind of recommendations or points to move on in there? Is there one that is within our control, one or maybe two that are within our control that we could, like you say, if everyone takes a small piece of what they are responsible for or can be responsible for, that's sort of how the thing is going to get solved. So, or made progress made, I guess might be a better way of phrasing that. So in the future, would it be a case of, these are the 8 recommendations, and recommendation say 3, whichever, let's say, is the one where the town has the, that one is one of our cracks, let's say, to start making a move on. Is that kind of what we can do from this table here?
Councillor Shannon?
I remembered what I wanted to say now. What I would like to see, but come back to the next meeting, is identifying, like, he said a few doables, quick and low hanging fruit. And then I want to clarify here, because I'm confused, is this a town committee or is it not? It's saying that we're saying that it's a town committee, yet they follow none of the rules the rest of the committee does. So I'm not sure how we, like, they don't have public meetings, they don't, we don't give reports,
Task force?
yes,
I don't think it is.
it's not a town committee then?
No.
But, okay, now I am confused, because other times in here, we have talked and you've referred to it. We're doing it because we have a town rep on there and it's a town center. It's not the town, okay.
Kind of
Okay.
administration's concern.
And so that's,
I don't like that.
yeah, that's one thing that I think as a council, we need to clarify on a go-forward basis. How we fit into that committee, or is this a committee that is a general community committee? And if somebody wants to be on the committee, they turn up. But we have assigned a town rep to it, which lends some. It's kind of a challenge a little bit because, you know, town committees, the directors, the people, the reps fall under town rules with health, safety, and whatever you want to call it. And I'm not saying there's a need for that, but, you know, there's clarity with respect to stuff like that. There's clarity with who they report back to and odds and ends like that, that the mental health, you know, it's started. Mark has led it along to the way it's got to at this point in time, which we're at not a turning point, but a point of, okay, now we've got this far, where are we going with it? Is it going to maintain the same type of thing? Is it going to be different, like your communication plan is kind of a different aspect? But yet at the same time.
Well, there were two parts to the motion. There was the first part, bring a report back to council with suggested move forward action points. And what the town's role could be with respect to the Peace River Mental Health Task Force Solutions Workshop Summary. And I don't think we did much on the second part of it. It was basically, because we didn't have all three of us there, like Kip didn't want to speak for everybody, and I don't think Mark did either. But I think what we wanted to do was just to use that time, because we had already booked the time, we were committed to doing it, say, what could we do? And I think, I remember my conversations, and this is just me. So I said, I really wanted to work with Mark and Brad on this, because I think it's an important thing. On, not necessarily the town's part of it, to be totally honest with you, but to work with Mark and Brad, because both of them are trying to do their part with that group, and it's not a committee of council.
Yeah, so
And I mean, because some of the suggestions that were brought up are not necessarily suggestions that the town would, I'll be honest with you, A, support, be capable of, or responsible for. So the fact that they're there doesn't mean that they're not there. They were there. Those are those suggestions that were in fact in the report, but it's not a town report.
So I think we need to clarify if it's somehow connected to the town, then what is that connection?
Would it be a suggestion?
Okay.
Would it be a suggestion that Mark and Brad and myself get a hold of the task force and have a conversation with them?
Well, then we should all be there.
Well, yeah, we said there's nothing stopping us from having that, but I'd say it might be an idea.
Well, like at this point in time, there are municipal reps on the task force. There's healthcare program reps of various sorts, et cetera. So, like, I'm not opposed to the town having a part, because it is our town we're talking about for the most part. However, I do think we need to clarify, is this going to be a town committee? Okay, so there's minutes taken, there's a terms of reference, we know what it's doing in that sense. And it could be that advocacy is part of it, making those connections is part of it, but I think we need it formalized. And I guess that's what I want to say, formalized.
I agree that with that formalized, and maybe bring back your suggestions on how you think it should look, because also we have to decide as a council, do we want to be the leader in that group? I don't, myself, I don't want to be the leader, like, I don't want Peace River to be the leader in that group. I think it should be a regional thing and run regionally and not tied to one municipality directly like ours. But that would be the best thing I could see, is you coming back with giving us some direction on that.
I'm gonna put him in on the spot. Admin, do have a thought process with respect to go forward here.
Your wish of my thought would be that I would like something formal, because it has caused administration concern that there are appointees on that committee from council, and there's no, like I said, there's no bylaw to establish it. There's no terms of reference. There's concerns if decisions are being made that there could be some liability attached to that committee, because there's no formal, nothing formalizing it. So we would support whatever council chooses to do, but strongly feels that whether it's Peace River or another municipality, that a formalized committee by bylaw should be created.
So I'm going to speak about the Peace Regional Healthcare Attraction Retention Committee, which is a committee of council. And I don't think we've got a bylaw, but apparently we're getting a bylaw. So we will be formalized. So that committee, it was set up, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, but it's set up so that it has reps from 4 municipalities plus Peace River. And it has reps from some healthcare peoples, including the clinic and including the hospital, because the nature of its purpose. So I could foresee the mental health committee or task force being something like that. It involves regional people, it involves people from other organizations like the mental health one that was mentioned, whoever, but it's just listed there. They know they're part of the committee, they know they're representing their organization, and they know the purpose of what they're doing on that committee. Just that sort of thing. So there is an example of what I kind of get the flavor of is on the committee already, on the mental health committee, but it's, you know, in a different context.
Well, then why not consider what we just did tonight as an interim on fulfilling this motion? Accept it for information, and that's that.
I think it's very good, but Deputy Mayor, did you have something you were gonna?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we do have terms of references, and we do put out monthly minutes that are to be shared with councils in closed session, just because of the nature of what we talk about and how we talk about it, and our advocacy efforts. So those were in place. We do have a terms of reference, and we do take minutes that are distributed and to be shared to council in closed. We just haven't been doing it very well on our council because for one reason or another, we just need to pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, Council Ford?
I kind of use your example, Mayor Manzer, the same as the Peace Regional RCMP Advisory Committee, where it is a town, but not a town committee, it's a regional committee. We have terms of reference. I don't think it's established by bylaw.
It's a society.
It's a registered society.
Yeah, we're a registered society. However, we also have town administration that actually records the minutes at those meetings.
So that probably needs to be formalized a little bit more too.
Well,
Councilor Scanlon?
the other option is to move in the other direction, and it is a group of concerned individuals that get together from time to time. These people are here. It happens to be that some of the members are also town councilors, and should they wish to inform council on what's going on, they give a presentation like any other public group. If you went in the other direction, that would be an option. I'm saying that's the best. It is an option, but that would probably preclude it from being a vote at, say, the organizational meeting, and it probably wouldn't land on your hour sheet or any of those other things. That's what I see. It's another direction.
So I'm fine with that too. I just think we need to decide somehow. And know. So, Counselor Good has suggested that his, or the briefing note be accepted for information. So the summary would be emailed to everybody for,
Yes, with the proviso that it is not a document to be referred to for facts or information or layout and presentation.
okay, and for clarity here, do we want a motion that says we want to clarify,
Well,
formalize, or
I think
not?
it's in here when it says, one of the things we're supposed to bring back, the three of us, was to comment on what the town's role should be. So we will have that discussion and bring that back also.
Okay,
So that motion is
We
still,
don't need a new motion.
The
other than
motion is
accept
still
it
in effect.
for continuing on.
Okay. okay, so that would come back maybe August meeting.
Sounds good.
It's at the end of August. We only have one meeting in August, so,
That'll be the one.
okay. Okay, so, we're going to have a motion at this point in time to accept, what are we calling this?
I got a word for it.
Okay.
Thank you, your worship. I put a motion on the floor that council accept the Peace Regional Mental Health and Addictions Task Force report from Deputy Mayor Boychuk, Councillor Carr, and Councillor Good for information.
That sounds comprehensive. Any discussion on it? All those in favor? Okay, it is carried. Thank you. Okay, we're getting to the end of reports, but we've got another one happening here. Encampments with CAO Miller and Councillor Carr. Yeah,
Thank you, worship. I'm just trying to, I'm not very good. Sure. I've just been asked to put this on, the agenda by Councillor Carr to talk about encampments. And I just wanted to mention that we did happen to get a timely email from a legal firm in Alberta that just happened to show up in my mailbox. So we did include that for council's consideration and as part of their discussion. And that's all I really have to say.
Okay, so Councillor Carr, did you have something further?
I just wanted to see what we're doing about encampments. I know personally, I've reported a number of them and quite frankly, they don't seem to be disappearing. I'm wondering if we're, with our no camping bylaw, is that being enforced? It is not being enforced. I understand, I read the report that was included in this, and I understand we have to be very careful, but we have encampments in town that are turning into criminal enterprises. And they've been reported and nothing is happening with them. I'm just wondering, where are we at with that? And are we still enforcing our no camping bylaw, or are we taking exceptions to this, or I'm just curious where we're at. And I've been asked by a number of other people about it as well, which really made me bring it forward.
I'm sorry, we should, that's what you were gonna ask me, because I would have asked for more information from Director Kress. I'm gonna say absolutely, they are taking down encampments. I was hoping he had some on his report here to speak to, so I am gonna have to defer that conversation. I'll see if I can't get something, a little bit of a brief to share with the council, but I do know they are addressing encampments, because he comes in and tells me, you know, we've found another one here or there. And I believe they've even partnered with a couple of those I've suggested to go to the Boating Association and the Baptist Church, who was helping last year with actual cleanup of the encampments, and it's my understanding that's happened, so.
Well, Director Kress was directed to, not directed, he was told that he could contact either Councillor Ford or myself, who have a number of organizations that have been willing to help, and we haven't had any requests whatsoever. So this is maybe where some of the question is coming from as well, because I'm being asked by the groups, like, what's going on, so.
Again, I'm only going by what I'm told when I come in, but I believe some of them they're trying to deal with before they even basically get established. So the bylaw and, our other Officer White, they've been taking them down for the most part. But I do know one was getting a bit big, and that's why I said you need to go and get some support. So maybe if you're aware of some other encampments, do you know if they're being sent to the bylaw at information address?
I'm the one that sent them, and yes,
And they weren't taken down?
there's one that is quite well established and appears to be, it appears to have more inventory than Canadian Tire.
Okay, let's talk about that one again. And I said the bigger established ones take coordination, right? And so perhaps that might be that we should talk about that.
Councillor Ford?
Yes, thank you. As Councillor Carr said, I am a member of the Peace River Boating Association, and if bylaw or a CPO program need volunteers to assist with cleanup, we are more than willing to get the manpower, same as we did earlier this year and last year. All you have to do is make the phone call.
Councillor Shannon?
I had a few calls and people telling me about these encampments. I didn't go look to see if they were there because I'm too tricky to do that. But anyway, I was just gonna ask, like, as Brad said, it is being enforced though. Like, if there's 10 encampments, are they doing them all, or are they doing their other work and just trying to get rid of them as they have time, or like, where is it on the priority list, I guess?
My understanding is top priority because they want to, they don't want them to get established and entrenched. So my understanding is as soon as they see them, they're addressing them. But, you know, they, again, too, I'm surprised if it's been reported that it hasn't been addressed. But they don't always see everything on their own, right?
And because my concern was, as we spoke before, about tourists that were here, and we had a camping bylaw, and Director Bell and I went and talked for like an hour on the phone, and there was no way we could bend that bylaw for this camper to put his tent up on Crown property for one night because he couldn't pedal to the nearest campground. He was from Germany, and we did not let him set up that tent because we had a bylaw. So we have to be enforcing that bylaw. For enforcing it, we enforce it for everyone.
And it's good, we've got a legitimate campground across the river now,
Yes.
which I think some of the powwow people used this weekend, so that was nice to see. Very good. Okay, so perhaps someone will move that council accept this.
Oh.
Ms. Parsons?
I just had a move that council direct administration to bring an updated report regarding the removal of encampments in town to the next regular council meeting.
That sounds very good.
So moved.
Councillor Ford just moved that. Everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor? Great, it is carried. Okay, we're going to proceed through to the beginning of closed and we'll have a break. So we now have reports. We have the June 2025 monthly development report. Any questions on that one? Looks like things are happening. Good to see. West Hill development is happening. Next up, June's Protective Services CPO monthly report. Files to date, 2025, 629. So, you know, with respect to that grant that we have, it's very important that people do still keep reporting anything and everything to the RCMP. Because if they don't, it's not going to be in that data. And, you know, whatever their feelings about the enforcement, at least do the reporting. Okay, does anybody have questions that, for Mr. Kress to answer in the future? Councillor Carr?
I'm curious on his report here. He has routine patrols 36. Is that how many patrols they've done, and what would that time frame be, a month?
Yeah, oh, no, yeah, no, cause it's,
I would think it'd be more than that. So what exactly would routine patrols?
I seem to recall him saying it takes 2 hours to patrol the town. So I think that might be, is that what I, that be 36 entire laps of the town of Peace River? I don't know.
no, I believe these are, complaints that they've identified through routine patrol. That's what I believe it is. So 50 unsightlies have been called in. So complaint driven, but the ones by routine patrol are things that they've identified on their own proactively. I believe that's what it is.
Okay, but would they not fall under, say, garbage or?
Even I believe the garbage,
Instead?
I think everything else is what's people have called in.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Again, I'll get clarification, but I believe that's how I've been told to understand it, is I believe it's those are, so somebody has called in about a garbage complaint that they addressed. And somebody called about property, but that 36 are other things that they've identified on their own, just driving around routinely.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Good?
This is just, more detail than anything, the officers' names were misspelled, bottom part. I don't know a Denial Crest or a Mickey Austin. So it was just, they were right up at the top part, and I thought they had it built, and then there.
Michael's name is actually spelled correctly.
Micheal, then it's wrong. Oh, it's right on the top part too. Cool.
Okay, a little work will happen there. Okay, next up, we have the monthly attendance reports. Mine is here for June. It was rather a busy month. So any questions on that one? Then we have community services, minutes of April 23rd. Councillor Scamahorn, anything to relate there?
Probably the biggest one there, the Community Services Board was able to have some discussion around, town facility rental policy. So that is gonna be I believe it's an administrative policy, so it's not even something that needs to come to council, but that was able to be formed with lots of really good input from the Community Services Board. And I think, Tanya's gonna have something really, really effective to put together so that there's just no more confusion around who, what, where, when, groups using town rental facilities.
That will be very interesting. You can get 100% on something like that. Very good. How about May 28th? Other set of minutes.
That might have been the meeting I was talking.
Oh, okay. Okay, any questions of Mr. Scamahorn?
We did have a meeting at the museum, and if you've not gone and seen the museum recently, the photos that are up on the wall in the museum now are really, really interesting. We're in Peace River. The photo that we see is the valley and the expanse and whatever, and these are photos that taken by Sharon Crucial that were up there at the time we were there, that are like a really macro zoomed in photo of like some moss or some lichen or something, and you'd be surprised what you miss when you step over a log. And I would just, I'd encourage people to go check that out. It was amazing.
Maybe someone would now move that council accept reports 9-1 through 9-4 for information. I can do that. Councillor Shannon so moves. All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Information, we have included the June 20th communication package. And there's a letter in there from Honorable Mike Ellis. This one has to do with policing costs and things like that. And I believe this is the one. Oh, anyways, you can read it. It has to do with body worn cameras and how that's being implemented and how some will be getting a little funding from the province because of the way they have their police forces, I believe. Then June 27th, we had, motion about grazing lease for Northern Sunrise and, Village of Pines Creek's, request for support for a motion at AM with respect to, what was it? Yes, technologies with respect to water testing. June 11th, we had, this is not here and it won't appear till August, so we were sent this one. There's a message, well, particular concern, East River Community Health Center Emergency Department temporary interruption. So on Monday, June 30th, from 7:30 AM, or no, from 3 PM, Monday, June 30th to 7:30, July 1st, we did not, the emergency department was temporarily closed. I understand they are having, some staffing issues, obviously, I guess. And some people are being asked to put in 16-hour shifts because there's nobody to cover. So East River has been somewhat lucky thus far that we have not had our emergency room closed. But we don't want this to continue or expand because it's very bad for our hospital, it's bad for our residents. So Northern Sunrise has also requested a meeting with Premier Smith according to their letter. This has to do with funding to do various reports, etc., for the nuclear project. And that's what I noticed in that one. So if someone would like to move the council accept items 10.1, well, actually just 10.1 for information. Councillor Carso moves. All those in favor? Great, it is carried. Notice this a motion. Do we have any? I don't think so.
Sorry.
And comments from the public? One is left. Okay, we're going to have a 7-minute break. So we're at 8:11, so 8:18, please be back. And we'll go into closed at that point so that the audio will be off.